Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be checking out every single Warhammer 40k faction explained, re-explained I should say, part 1 by Bricky. Yes guys, now the title of this video was certainly not clickbait back in the day. Bricky was one of the very first channels that I ever reacted to Warhammer related on my channel. It's one of the very first videos that blew up for my channel, and so I figured today let's go back and watch his new re-released video on every single Warhammer faction explained. I figure a refresher never hurts, and again, you guys love his content. I love his content. It's been a long time since we checked Bricky out. Basically, his older videos were basically a lot more beginner friendly kind of lore videos, which I didn't have a problem with. They really did kind of get me interested in Warhammer, I won't lie. They make you want to learn more, you know what I'm saying? Like that was what his videos were really good for. So it's great to see him come back and maybe you know, maybe correct some things that you know, we've since been told are wrong or have been corrected. You know, the lore has changed, vice versa, whatever have you. Some things he oversimplified a little bit more, I think, than he should have. But you know, I'm really excited to check it out here today. A lot of you guys have been asking for me to check this video out, and that's what I'm here to do today. It's a long one, 2 hours long, but I'm excited for it. Bricky makes fantastic content. I really like the videos we did check out from him. So yeah, I'm really excited to get right into it. So if you guys enjoy the video, leave a like, subscribe for more content, and of course, leave your recommendations down in the comments below. Come on down, join our Discord, join our Legion today, guys. It's awesome to see you there. So come on down, join the Discord, get notified when YouTube fails to do its job, because that will certainly happen. Yeah, am I missing anything? Oh yes, our members, of course, our members. Big thank you to our members, of course, Oliver, Hastati, and our Principe Dagenhart. I appreciate you, sir. You guys inspired me to make more content for you guys every single day, and if you want to support the channel in that sort of way, I would really appreciate it. You know, YouTube, it's obviously not paying me much right now, so you know, any support does mean a lot to me, guys. So I really appreciate you guys that choose to support me in that way. But yes, without any further delay, let's get right into this video. Every single Warhammer 40k faction re-explained by Bricky, part 1. Let's check it out. Also, I really got to say right off the bat, I'm really liking this like Microsoft like Visa XP background going on here. All right, as always, pen and paper, I will be writing stuff down. Now, obviously, a lot of this I should know, but you know, refreshers never hurt. So let's get into it.
In the kind brightness of the far past, there was no war. Our galaxy was, for a long time, fairly empty and quiet.
Well, that's true.
The first known species to appear during this time
empty
are known only
is the key word there.
Ones, cosmic entities that traveled across the galaxy with ease and seeded life through the stars. Shortly thereafter, a new species began to arise. The Necron tier.
Great.
Under the harshness of a devastatingly powerful star, the short-lived and irradiated Necron tier try to find the secret to eternal life and to be freed from their terrible existence. As they expand through the stars, they find the old ones and they plead to them to share the secrets of the universe and grant them purchase from their short and painful existence.
Oh man.
The old ones respond with a lol and a lamau, and with their immense power, they force them back to their homeworld. The Necron tier, filled with rage and hatred, make it their duty to get revenge on the old ones. A revenge that would come swiftly as a chance encounter with other gods gave them a solution. These other gods were known as the C'tan, a race of highly powerful star-consuming entities. Do not fear, young mortals, for we, the C'tan, will provide you with the immortality you seek. Come now.
Of course.
Shake a poor sinner's hand. Quoted from Nephetron, the Deceiver.
Oh wow.
Accepted the C'tan's
nice.
offer of immortality, but
I obviously have to say too, props to Bricky, man. I love his content. I love his humor. You know what I'm saying? He makes like he makes the lore very digestible, you know, especially for new people, you know what I'm saying? Now I've been into looting for a while, you know, I know, so I've been into the harder core lore videos for a while now, but I have to say it is really refreshing for the more like humorous take on the lore, you know what I'm saying? And so far he's doing a really great job at it, you know what I'm saying? And this is awesome to see all these references in here, rather than just explain it. He's got quotes as well. That's awesome. So yeah, you know, I just want to say props to Bricky for that. This is looking good so far.
The Deceiver. The Necron tier accepted the C'tan's offer of immortality, but believe it or not, this turned out to be a ruse. A trick! The Catan crafted gigantic furnaces and began the process of biotransference. The Necron tier willingly
We know how this goes.
line by line into the furnace engines made by gods who devour stars and had their souls consumed instead. The short-lived, irradiated, and cancer-inflicted race of the Necron tier ceased to be, and the immortal, soulless Necrons remained. Now backed by the immense power of the Catan, the Necrons rally against the Old Ones, and the bitter conflict in the stars at this time is known as the War in Heaven.
And I have to say too, it's very, very cool. Not cool, but it's very interesting, this time period in 40k history. You know, I don't know a whole lot about it, you know, so any refresher on it is always welcomed. This is all pretty relevant for me still, you know, even though I know obviously what happens. We've seen some videos on it, and we've seen his prior videos on it, I should say, as well. Go check that out if you haven't, obviously. But you know, it's always good to get a refresher on the War in Heaven, because it's kind of a it's kind of like it's mentioned to you, you remember it, you know what happened, but the details of it are obviously pretty lost even to us in modern 40k history, especially to us in modern 40k history. But it's always good to get a little refresher on it and pick up some little tidbits here and there, you know. Necrons, you know, I don't know a whole lot about the Necrons, so it's good to learn like their past and what happened.
Conflict in the stars at this time is known as the War in Heaven. Despite creating various races and entities to aid them in this battle, the Old Ones are overwhelmed and eradicated down to the last, due to the sheer power of the Catan fat off the souls of the Necron tier, and with an army of unthinkable robotic slaves at their behest. However, the Catan are greedy, spiteful gods, and when there was no foe worth killing, they turn on each other. The Necrons then put their sights towards the Catan and lay waste to them, securing their freedom. The once subservient Necrons now control their former masters.
And it's so interesting that the Necrons actually took on the Catan.
The Necrons under their leader Zarek,
like, it's pretty big balled, I'm not gonna lie.
Dormant, with a plan to eventually wake and reclaim control over the galaxy. Over millions of years, empires rise and they fall. The species created by the Old Ones have footholds over the galaxy, but on a pale blue dot in the thick of all this conflict, humanity begins to evolve. And for the most part, the basic path of humanity's evolution remains the same as it is now for almost 15,000 years.
Yeah.
Right now, in the 21st century, this is canon. You, right now, Twitch streamer reacting to this video, you existed at a point in the Warhammer universe.
We're actually not streaming this video, but that's pretty on the nose, Bricky. Goddamn.
Technology becomes
just got called out.
And the goal
actually just got fucking called out.
Begins. Humanity
goddamn
to branch out through the stars with powerful tools used for agriculture, mining, and expansion. Some branches of humanity would eventually settle far away from Earth itself. And around this time, the psychic ability of humans are greatly expanded, and what we begin to know as psychers appear. But despite all the progress, things would begin to collapse. The machines created to aid humanity would turn on them in M23, an event.
And this is another like time period, you know, that I don't know a ton about, and I don't know if there's a whole lot of lore on it. I know there is lore on it. I don't know if there's a ton of lore on it, because it's kind of one of those things that are like how you say scrubbed in modern 40k. A lot of it is scrubbed, and a lot of history in general is obviously scrubbed, censored, let's say, a better word for it. But yeah, what is it? The Men of Iron, I'm pretty sure, right? It's basically the automata, the AI that humanity made, basically turned on humanity. Humanity ended up winning, of course, but at what cost? And now obviously then you get into like, what is a machine god and what is a true AI, whatnot, you know, what's those in their titans? What do you call those? Oh, those are machine spirits. Oh, okay. Yeah. Machine spirit. Let's call it that. It's definitely not an AI. Yeah. fucking, you know what I'm saying? Like, but let's keep going here.
The machines created to aid humanity would turn on them in M23, an event known as the Cybernetic Revolt, and trade would begin to
Cybernetic
collapse
Revolt.
due to the immaterial warp, aka actual hell, beginning to cause ruptures in space and time. These warp stones would separate humanity, and this would be what is known as the Age of Strife. The warp, a sea of souls, storing all thought, emotion, and the souls of those who have passed on, begin fluctuating into something terrible, as far on the horizon, something horrendous was brewing. You see, the warp isn't just a...
Now, and I just want to say too, I'm really liking that this is a faction re-explain video, but he's giving us the prelude to everything into the modern 40k setting, right? He's still giving us that introduction to the 40k setting, and he's doing it in a really, really compelling way. I won't lie. Like he's a really interesting guy. The way he talks is extremely like entertaining, and the way he's telling this story, I must say, a lot. And this isn't to say his old video was bad at all, but this is a lot more. This is a lot more up my alley. I think this is a lot more conducive, you know what I'm saying, a lot more to the point, and it's done in a really, really engaging way, and I really, really appreciate the way he's doing this so far. Again, I'm not trying to glaze Bricky here, but he's doing a fantastic job on this right now.
On the horizon,
I'm really liking this introduction.
Was brewing. You see, the warp isn't just a random assortment of chaotic energy. It is fairly well organized, thanks to those
of course
living in the galaxy. The warp itself acts as an afterlife of sorts, and the actions of the innumerable amount of creatures who live in the galaxy,
hell but not hell,
manifested a pantheon of
warp is a weird place
known as the forces of chaos. At
yes,
their helm are three major entities: Khorne, Nurgle, and Tzeentch. However, a fourth one, Slaanesh, was about to be born. The ancient Eldar were one of the first species created by the Old Ones, and due to their extreme and unbridled excess, the birthing of Slaanesh tore a hole in the galaxy and forever split the Eldar into those of the craft world, who sought to bring their species back together, and those of the Drukhari,
dark elves.
The birth of Slaanesh in the first place.
Man.
The birthing of this fourth chaos god settled the warp storms of the
obviously not dark elves, but Drukhari, yes, of course, you know. And man, it's just like so weird to see like the two like polar opposites on display here with the Eldar, you know, in general. You know, one side actually trying to save their race, quote unquote, one trying to, well, they're both technically trying to save their race. That's the thing. Their motivation is technically the same, right? But after Slaanesh is born, you know, of course, the Drukhari see it as a necessary evil to keep their race alive with what they do, the shit that they succumb people to, not just people, but anything really, you know. They're such a weird bunch, and I actually don't know, like, I don't know a whole lot about the in-depth lore of the Eldar in general. You know what I'm saying? I know obviously what they've been through. I know we see them pop up at times within 40k stories and whatnot. But I don't know many like books or much like animations or anything like that actually involve a whole lot of Eldar. You know, you don't really see them too much in animation, and that's kind of unfortunate, you know. Big shout out to JJ Case for involving the Drukhari, though. That was awesome to see. That Raptor video he released was fantastic, by the way. If you guys haven't seen that or my reaction to it, go check it out. It was a fantastic video.
The first place. The
just saying, gotta plug that.
Chaos god settled the warp storms of the Immaterium and ended the Age of Strife, but humanity was still fractured. So one man revealed himself and spearheaded an immense attempt to reunite all the fractured pieces of humanity. That man was the Emperor of Mankind. After reclaiming the nearly destroyed Earth, the Emperor embarked on the unification wars to unite humanity under the banner of the Imperium of Man. However, due to the very long and devastating impact of the Age of Strife, humanity as we know it is not the same.
Yeah.
To conquer Earth, the Emperor would need more than mere men. Great beings, known as the Thunder Warriors, were recruited by the Emperor to reclaim the Earth.
Rest in peace, the Thunder Warriors. Never forget.
And had,
never forget.
Overstayed their welcome.
Yeah.
They needed something better. and that solution
Poor
would be
guys.
known as the Space Marines. Superhuman soldiers that will have the skill and cunning exponentially greater than the mortal
Awesome
man.
scene,
These
yeah.
new warriors would be commanded by an elite group of his very own sons known as the Primarchs. Unfortunately, though, Daddy didn't charge the baby monitor, and his 2018 sons would be stolen by the forces of chaos and scattered across the galaxy. This would be...
Yeah, a lot of you guys told me I didn't pick up on that fact in the original video that he did when I reacted to it. And you're totally right, I didn't. But yeah, that's cool that he's 2018, right? Like, yeah.
Would be stolen by the
we don't talk about those guys.
And scattered across the galaxy. This would begin the Great Crusade, a monumental task to take back the stars in the name of humanity and reclaim the lost Primarch sons. However, he would need the fires of industry to make this happen. Looking to the distant cousins of Mars, the Emperor signed a treaty with the technologically irradiated hellscape of the Red Planet and allowed the cult of the machine god, the Mechanicum, to supply his crusade. While Space Marines were the tip of the spear, their numbers paled to the vast might of the Imperial Army and Navy, the Astra Militarum, and their seemingly endless numbers make up the bulk of the fighting force for humanity, supplied by the intelligence and prowess of various agents of the Imperium, such as rogue traders and assassins.
And it's very interesting too, like as a what if situation. Like what if, like, you know, the Emperor didn't agree to the terms, you know, like what if he didn't let them practice the machine spirit, just deny the terms outright? It makes you think. And I guess he really did need the Mechanicus as much as the Mechanicus needed the Imperium. That's why the deal was ultimately struck. That's why, you know, accords were made, why the deal was made. But it'd be such an interesting what if, like, you know, instantly they just like disagreed, you know, relations broke down. Now I think the Mechanicus definitely have the fleet power in space still, right? And I think the key part is that the Imperium at this time does not, or at least have much of it, let's say. But you know, goddamn, what a brutal conflict that would have been instantly. And I don't know if humanity would have gotten very far had relations broke down. Obviously they didn't. It's just a cool what if situation I've thought about quite a bit. You know, what if, you know, I think about that a lot with a lot of like series genres, whatever have you. But it's really interesting in Warhammer just to say, like, you know, what if that didn't happen, and to think of a story about that, you know.
Prowess of various agents of the Imperium, such as rogue traders and assassins. Due to the lack of connectivity between the worlds, what a society had become over thousands of years became mysterious and varied. Tools once used for harvesting and agriculture now are being used as machines of war in the form of Imperial Knights. Some of these fractures of humanity would even be changed further and become unrecognizable to the average human, with differences in size, skin color, appendages, cat ears, sometimes. Some would go so far to become their own galactic societies, like the miners of the Galactic Core and their immense supercomputers, forming the Leagues of Votan. After an incredible amount of effort and books, the lost sons of the Emperor would be reunited, and the Imperium of Man would be firmly established. This, however, would not last. Be it intentional or accidental, the Emperor would not reveal to his sons the true nature of the galaxy and the terrors of the warp. And this oversight would result in one of the most
intentional or accidental. What do you guys think? Intentional or accidental? After everything I've seen, definitely intentional. Didn't reveal, you know. Misstep for sure in my mind. Misstep for sure, but intentional that he didn't reveal it.
Oversight would result in one of the most impactful wars in humanity's history. The favorite son of the Emperor, Horus, would fall to the powers of chaos and turn on his father.
Right.
This betrayal, this backstabbing, this heresy, this
very interesting heresy, very interesting time period, I have to say,
would result in a split in the
love hearing about the Horus heresy.
Consequences. Half of the Emperor's loyal sons would fall to chaos and become the Chaos Space Marines, along with the forces of the Dark Mechanicum and the Chaos Knights. The conflict
Yeah.
will result in the absolute obliteration of Horus and the physical death of the Emperor himself. The near dead body of the Emperor will be placed on the Golden Throne to serve as a beacon of humanity and allow for the continued ability to travel the stars, protected by his most loyal, the Adeptus Custodes.
Right.
The Imperium would be vulnerable during this age of rebirth, and Terra would find itself under siege by one of the most formidable species in the galaxy, the Orcs.
Interesting there, and I understand why, but I feel like he maybe should have mentioned the Astronomicon there. Maybe just like explained it a touch, you know? This is why the Emperor had to ascend the throne, right? Because it's, you know, it's one thing he lost, he had to do this thing, but the Astronomica is a very big deal. And obviously he said like to continue their warp travel, of course, to continue their travel through the stars. But that is the main reason, right? Why, like, the Age of Strife was such a bad time, right? And to return to Age of Strife travel, I guess, or ability would be fucking catastrophic to humanity at this point, right? So just I wish he touched on that a little bit more, but that's okay. I understand there's a lot to go through, so I definitely do not blame him.
Find itself under siege by one of the most formidable species in the galaxy, the Orcs. As time went on and memories of the Emperor's vision began to fade, the Emperor would become less of a head of state and more of a religious figure. And
yes.
The Imperium would change to reflect this. The leadership on a planet would be at the behest of the High Lords of Terra, and their actions would be courtesy of the incomparable power and authority of the Inquisition. The zealots of the Imperium would intensify and create a brand new era known as the Age of Apostasy. And this ecclesiarchal command of the Imperium would end up with one of the strongest fighting forces of Terra, the Adeptus Sororitas. Over time, this age would come to pass, and we would approach the 40th millennium of Warhammer 40,000.
Awesome.
Which
that was a great intro.
Would come with its own form of problems. A primitive species once found during a recon mission would be able to evolve in relative secrecy for 6,000 years, becoming a highly advanced coalition of aliens known as the Tau Empire.
Ugh.
And if the threats of the galaxy weren't bad enough, there are threats from outside the galaxy. As a monster has begun to wrap its tendrils around the Milky Way, the Tyranids, monsters that serve a psychic hive mind and present tactics previously unseen in the Milky Way. Be it a direct assault with their monstrous bug.
Tyranids are fucking sick, though. Tyranids are fucking sick.
The presence of yet another threat in the galaxy is proving to be overwhelming to the Imperium. In the 41st millennium, there is no
gotta say, I love
the stars.
I absolutely love the color schemes of the Tyranid units, you know, be it from whatever Hive fleet, Leviathan, Behemoth, you know, all of them look fucking amazing. It doesn't matter really what color scheme, and also the custom color schemes I see for Tyranids too. It's good shit. I really appreciate the Tyranids for that reason. Obviously a horrific bug monster, you know, but the minis look fantastic, I have to say, and the way people do them look great.
In the 41st millennium, there is no peace among the stars.
No.
At any point, your life can and will be threatened by the Xenos races uncountable, or by the arch enemy of chaos within, or by the decroded terror that is the Imperium itself. It is to live in the cruelest and most bloody regime imaginable. Forget the power of technology and science, or the safety of promise and understanding. For in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.
Wow. That was a great intro. Great little taste, great little teaser of what you're getting into. You did a fantastic job with that.
Fantastic job once again, Mr. Kurz, the Night Haunter himself.
Oh, great.
Didn't you love that, my faithful audience? Once again, we have another criminal over the course of 6 hours break every single bone in his body.
Oh, God.
And that once again, our glorious leader has brought the crime rate to 0%. Always brought to you here on the Strawman News. I'm your host, Bricky. Thank you once again for joining us. Our top stories for tonight. The weather forecast appears to be rainy with extra dark, so make sure you pack those extra batteries for your lamp packs. And of course, let's not forget,
for those of you who don't know,
gang violence.
Obviously Nostromo, right? Fucking awful planet to be on. Conrad Kurz is there. Oh, he owns it, and it's a fucking goddamn, you know, kind of a nightmare. Conrad Kurz is he's basically the serial killer of the Primarchs, you know what I'm saying, for lack of a better word. Without getting too far into him, I'm sure we're going to hear a little bit more about him here, so I don't want to over-explain before we hear Bricky's explanation, of course, but fucking Kurz, man, the rat. Kurz, not even the rat, we explained it. Kurz the snake. Kurz is a fucking snake.
And of course, let's not forget the fantastic gang violence problem we're currently having.
Has rat behavior, but he is more of a snake, I think.
Right, it's gone. It's looking to be a chilly one tonight as well, so make sure your skin capes are nice and tight.
Oh.
Wait, hold on, one moment. No. Adamantium reserves have tripled? Wait, I'm sorry. Self-harm rates have gone down to 0%. The Night Haunter smiled?
Yikes. Breaking news.
This could only mean one thing. It is the Strawman News' great privilege to bring some color back in your life with the brand new 3-part Gamer Subs.
Oh, nice.
Exclusively on
what a great segue into an ad.
That's
wow.
Right, your esteemed host, Bricky myself,
that's awesome.
is dropping a 3-part Gamer Subs release for
take a look at that water bottle.
Now and only for a couple of weeks. Not
great graphics on that.
A completely brand new artwork.
Wow. Yeah.
The sweet 6-pack flavor, one of the highest selling flavors in the entirety of Gamer
I do remember
Subs.
that.
It also comes with the first ever all over print Gamer Subs 32-ounce jug. And
damn, dude.
Isn't enough for you. If the
well, I gotta be honest, guys. I mean, I've had this, you know, I've had this here Nalgene bottle for probably about 6 or 7 years now. She's good old reliable, you know, and fucking broken, you know what I'm saying? But damn, the artwork on that fucking water bottle looks insane. I gotta say, I might have to look into this myself. This is a fucking great ad, I have to say. And great segue, man. Wow.
A phenomenal drink and drink holder is not enough for you. We have a desk mat to go along with it. That's right. The Herculean look of the brand new sweet
so much value
style is here. We're still looking at muscles beyond belief, but this time we're talking taste. We're talking Atlas. We're talking smooth.
No.
And that wasn't enough. I, your co-host specifically, should you pre-order all 3 of these items, will personally hand sign a note for you thanking you for supporting this network.
God damn.
All of this you can receive for 10% off. If you
oh.
go down in the description of this video and click the link, or go to gamersubs.com.
I'm gonna have to do that after this video.
Code Bricky. Save 10% off with code Bricky. Bring some color back into your life and increase production across the board for our glorious leader, the Night Haunter.
God damn.
Gamer Subs for sponsoring the Strawman News, and let us move on to our next scheduled program.
I just have to say, guys, go use code Bricky if you plan on buying Gamer Subs. That's a fucking great deal, 10% off. Great shit there. And wow, great products. And I have to say, the advertisement, very attractive graphics, you know what I'm saying? He did a really good job on that one, you know what I'm saying? That shit looks pretty fine, I won't lie. So great job on that, Bricky. Wow.
5 years ago, I made every Warhammer 40k faction explained.
Yes.
A passion project of mine for a universe that I enjoyed so much. Its main purpose was to be a drawbridge. The separation between the layman who had only ever seen the big armored blue man situated next to a Wetzel's Pretzels.
That was me.
And then the hardcore Warhammer lore nerd. That was just too wide, and there was nothing bridging these two together. Since 2020, Warhammer has exploded in popularity thanks to COVID, quality game updates, and a few excellent video games, and a couple mini-series. The sheer volume of people who have told me they have purchased miniatures due to that video alone makes me feel as if Games Workshop owes me commission.
Now, I'm just gonna say, I've bought a Warhammer set, guys, and 1,000 subs. We will be painting that up, so make sure you hit the subscribe button if you guys want to see a live stream of that. But also, yes, I mean, he got me, you know, it was one of the very first introduction videos I ever saw to Warhammer. The very first reaction videos I did on my channel was of Bricky's Warhammer content, of his faction explained shit. So I guess you could say, technically speaking, I bought a Warhammer set because of him. Because he got me into Warhammer, in a sense, right? Now, he's got a point. That's all I'm saying here.
Pictures due to that video alone makes me feel as if Games Workshop owes me commission. However, that video is incomplete. I was not a casual fan, but I was also not a hardcore lore junkie. In the 5 years since that video's release, multiple channels have sprouted up, and the drawbridge between casual to the obsessed has never been wider or easier to traverse.
Of course.
I myself have been a part of Adeptus Ridiculous, a podcast teaching lore in a much simpler and condensed form. Needless to say, I've learned a lot. Warhammer is so much more than just Spaceman shoots big gun.
Exactly.
It's also grown substantially from its origins, being a Warhammer fantasy spin-off just in space. Now, it is a black library filled with immensely deep characters, difficult themes, and even some tear-jerking stories. It is a backdrop for 1,000,000 stories over 1,000,000 worlds, and I did not see its true depth in 2020. But now, I'd like to share what I've learned. We just had a brief summary of the world and each faction that takes place during it.
Goddamn.
And we did that because to truly understand each faction, we must understand what makes them the way they are.
Exactly.
To do so, we need to begin in chronological order, discussing their origins, their culture, their powers, and of course, what makes them oh so grimdark. So let's begin with the group that started it all and sing praise to the Infinite Empire.
Nice.
As mentioned before, the Necron tier were the original form of the Necrons.
Right.
An alien race far away from us that lived short, painful lives due to the irradiation of their star. Normally, this would manifest as like a sort of cancer, a space cancer of sorts. Necrons are very much inspired by the ancient...
Poor Necrons and their space cancer.
Unlike the windswept dunes commonly associated with it, the irradiated hellscape the Necron tier endured was far from picturesque. This also
and if you know fantasy, I've heard the Necron tier be very, very closely compared to the Tomb Lords from Age of Sigmar, or should I say Old World, I guess. I don't know a whole lot about it fancy, but I do hear the Necron compared to them in that sense a lot. A lot of their architecture, a lot of like kind of the gist of them, I guess you could say. A lot of it seems Tomb Lord based in the Necrons, and that's the cool thing about it. You know, each faction is similar but not the same. You know what I mean? And that's one of the cool things about Warhammer is it's not just fantasy in space. Like there is inspiration taken from fantasy, but it's completely its own thing, has completely its own story. And I think they're both very, very interesting. You know, so it's just something I was just thinking of there, you know.
Hellscape, the Necrons.
If you know what the Tomb Lords are, think of them.
This also translates into their hierarchy. They are a race of nobles and peasants. Most of the peasants would often live for their very short amount of time,
right?
A couple of decades, while the nobles tended to have better care and would live a little bit longer, but still far less than the average lifespan of a human, even today in the 21st century. The leader of the Necrons was Zarek, the Silent King. He was the one who took the deal with the Catan and the Deceiver. Of course, he wasn't aware of the fact that they were known as the Deceiver at the time, but the whole species was blinded by hate after
what a fucking misstep, you know,
ones on their quest to cure their illness. The sheer pain that underwent the Necron race can't be understated, as their fear was manic. The Catan are, of course, gods that eat stars, and when the leader of your species tells you to march into the gigantic green furnaces to ascend to immortality, you march. The scenes from these are long lines of both the peasantry and nobles clutching their loved ones in a frantic act to save their own lives. Many of them already inflicted in the late stages of the space cancer, some of them crawling into the biotransference furnaces, trying to outrace death itself, without realizing death was the one who made these to begin with. What came out the other side was a soulless husk. And I say that literally. A soul is not an abstract concept like it is in our world.
Yeah.
An immaterial version of oneself discussed and debated in religion and philosophy. No, in Warhammer, a soul is a real, tangible item of oneself. And the Catan,
that's a good way of explaining it.
Just like to
pretty
every
much
single person who went in their furnaces. If you were a peasant, you came out a Necron warrior, and you as an individual have ceased to be. You have no mind, you have no soul, and your body, as you know it, is made of an extremely advanced mass of re-knitting living metal known as necrodermis. You cannot think,
and that
for
shit's
yourself,
crazy.
for you do not have a brain to think.
That shit is crazy.
All you do now is await protocols from your overlords, which
literally
are the nobles who came out of the furnaces with their minds intact, not their souls, mind you, but their minds are very much intact. These nobles now have command protocols, and they are able to command all of their peasantry and do with them whatever they wish. Xeric.
And it's very, very like interesting too that the nobility actually got to keep their minds. You know, they actually got to keep their heads intact in a sense there. You know, but not their souls, as he says. Yeah, not their souls. And you got to think what that would do to a personality of someone too. And I think that's the reason why so many Necrons now, you know, they're just so like hollow, like literally emotionally, you know, when you talk to them. And I guess that's not necessarily true. I feel like Trazyn, for example, he's just a little fucker. You know what I mean? Like he definitely has a personality. It definitely seems like some of the Tomb Lords can keep personalities. Now, I don't know what makes him different. But it's just really interesting to think about, you know?
Command all of their peasantry and do with them whatever they wish. Xeric, the Silent King, is the most advanced of all the Necrons, a perfect metallic version of himself with incredible power and intelligence. His strength allowed him to lead the undead and the unthinking armies of the Necrons to battle against the Catan when they were at their weakest due to their incessant infighting, and then win back their freedom. But gods cannot die. So in reality, what occurred is the Catan were shattered into thousands of pieces, and each shard of their god was trapped in a stasis vault and mind controlled to do the bidding of the Necrons they once enslaved.
Isn't that crazy?
Challenge they face now,
irony, am I right?
The upstarts of the galaxy, the Eldar and the Orcs, were quite prominent, and as you can imagine, a galactic war really takes its toll on the joints, or I guess the servos. It was in their best interest to wait out the galactic rise of the other races and come back at a more opportune time. So they went into stasis via these massive tomb complexes hidden beneath various worlds, biding their time until it was once again their opportunity to rule the galaxy. Xeric, the Silent King, as penance for his failure to his people, exiled himself into the darkness between stars for the next 60 million years with his perfect memory, a constant reminder of the doom he inflicted upon his people. Flash forward to the modern day, and the Necrons are reawakening, but it isn't working as well as it could be. Whether the tomb world is reawakened naturally or by some imperial moron stepping on a green glove,
literally,
the Necrons have come back to reclaim a galaxy they consider rightly theirs.
And it is sometimes literally as simple as some imperial idiot walking into somewhere they shouldn't be, doing something they don't know any better about, but like still, you know, just like the hubris of the humanity, I guess you could say, you know. Even you see like you know, even Astartes go down there and shit, and it's just like, holy shit, you know what I mean? Like you're fucking with stuff that you shouldn't be there, you know what I'm saying? You don't even want to touch anything. Like again, when a lord rises, you know, when a Necron lord rises, it usually, unless they can stop it miraculously in time, it usually means the end of the planet, usually, from what I can see. But like, they can stop it. You can shut it down. We've seen that at times, or at least slow it down, the awakening process, enough to the point where you can fight back effectively enough. But yeah, them awakening, bad time for anyone on the planet. Yeah, no, you need support definitely, or you're fucked.
The Necrons have come back to reclaim a galaxy they consider rightly theirs. But 60 million years of hypersleep have taken their toll.
Yeah.
Many Necron dynasties awake with systems unrestored.
Yeah.
And huge swaths of
That's
their
the thing too.
population's minds completely lost. Necron nobles wake with various mental faculties compromised, sometimes exhibiting traits similar to excessive paranoia, schizophrenia, or even dementia. One notable Necron, Nemesaur Zandrek, believes that he is still back on his home planet fighting off separatists and interlopers. See,
What the
over
fuck?
The separatists come, attempting to outflank me as they did at the 4th Battle of Vindach. How they calculate that daubing themselves green and roaring like savages will produce a different outcome, I cannot fathom. But it is
Wow.
no account. Ready, my legions. Another glorious victory shall soon be ours. Other individuals, such as the esteemed Imatech the Stormlord, seek to...
So it's almost as if like 60 million years technically on like a machine body. You could definitely see that, like, you know, it's like booting on like an old 64. Sometimes it won't work, you know, or like an old system or something like that, an old TV, you know. It'll have its quirks, you know what I'm saying? It'll have its quirks going for it, you know? And with the Necrons, you know, obviously that's... Some can be a lot more quirky than others, let's say.
Ours. Other individuals, such as the esteemed Imatech the Stormlord, seek to usurp the newly returned Silent King for rightful ruler over the Necron race.
Yeah.
His time
So they're even
has
fighting
come
each
to an
other.
end, while
So that's what
scientists
kind of
and
nerfs them a little bit, because they are
archaeologists
very
like Trajan the
powerful.
Infinite and Orkin the Diviner spend thousands of years bickering over artifacts and petty squabbles.
Literally.
Truly, the Necrons are a faction of unthinkable, unimaginable power, held back entirely
by their own hubris. Literally,
and
yeah.
60 million years of stasis.
Good job,
It is a
Ricky.
species that does not know
Good way of explaining them.
only of the ravages
Yeah.
brought by it.
God.
A Pharaon of a dynasty
Oh.
may just be as frightened to awake
Brutal
completely
weaponry.
mad as they are to be assassinated while they sleep. Thousands of years pass in an instant. There is a play, like an opera play, a retelling of the war in heaven in the Necron culture that takes 40 years to witness, because why leave? You have no need to eat or vacate your bowels. You are immortal, but you are soulless. Despite the Necrons' incredible technology, their mastery over time, reality itself, despite all of this, they still are missing a soul.
Yeah.
And therein lies the biggest struggle. Most Necrons look to conquest the galaxy, kill the interlopers like the humans, Eldar, and Orcs that scrape at a fraction of their power. The end goal for many, including Zarek himself, is to return the souls to their bodies, to undo the horrible fate he cast upon them.
And it makes you
It's
think,
not
where
the
do they
interest
get
of all.
bodies
Many
from,
simply
right?
wish to rule their dynasty with an iron fist and kill all they consider unworthy. But to
Literally.
many others is to undo the decision that doomed them all.
The Necrons are very interesting because, again, like, there are Necrons out there, like obviously High Lord Necrons, like Trajan, that just have like their own like personal motivation in a sense, you know what I'm saying? And it makes for really interesting stories, especially like, you know, just the funny shit that they can get up to, but also the serious shit that they can get up to too. Makes for a very, very compelling story arc, and also that they're just mentally kind of unfit at times, you know? Makes them interesting, makes them very unique.
But to many others is to undo the decision that doomed them all. Before they can do that, there is a pest that needs exterminating.
Oh.
That is the fundamental understanding of the Necrons. They are so hyper advanced that their science borders on magic.
Yes.
They play with the fundamental aspects of reality and time. Their mastery of the physical galaxy is the strongest in the universe.
They're like a
Their
type
weapons
1
reduce
civilization,
people to the
but they're
barest
fucking just,
molecules, and they have
they're
devices
hubris.
capable of causing stars to supernova. They
Literally.
are unfathomably difficult to kill, as if you do fell one of their number, the living metal reknits itself and the reanimation protocols allow it to come back alive once again.
Literally.
They're masters of teleportation, and often killing a Necron fully will just have its consciousness translocated back to their tomb world to await reassembly. Normally they utilize large phalanxes of warriors and honorary combats, but some of them have fallen to various mind viruses. The destroyer cults are hell-bent on killing anything and everyone that lives with an overwhelming force. And then
Wow.
there's the flayed ones, Necrons cursed with "I have no mouth and I must scream," a panic attack virus, as the last laugh of Landogo, the Flayer Catan, slowly losing
The
their
Flayer
minds,
Catan,
they
oh my
shut
god.
their foes and adorn their bodies with the skin of their enemies.
God
trying to
damn it.
better return to their old feelings of flesh and blood.
That's crazy.
Necrons are a degraded version of their mighty empire, and still one of the biggest threats in the galaxy. The only thing keeping them at bay currently is their awakening sickness
and themselves.
Infighting with no care to the timeline.
Literally.
They are coming, and slowly.
Because again, them fighting each other. Oops. Oh no. No, I fucked it up, guys. I fucked it up. Oh.
Brightness of the far.
No. Where were we? No.
They plan to rid.
But what I was gonna say there, now that I'm back on thought, now that we're back here. Like, again, as Bricky explains it here, yeah, like the Necrons can afford to fight each other off. They can afford to wait out however long they need to wait out. Like, they can literally hibernate, you know. They've hibernated their way through how many civilizations rising and falling galactically, right? Time is nothing to them. They don't give a shit about it, right? If worse comes to worse, they'll just wait it out, you know. I feel like you're always going to miss one Tomb Lord, because like a lot of the times, like these planets will just be attacked by Necrons because the tombs will just awaken at random, you know. Or the Mechanicus will conduct an archaeological dig there, and suddenly it's like, holy fuck, there's Necrons on this planet. Like, we had no idea. This place has been established for thousands of years in human civilization, and we had no fucking idea. You know what I mean? So it's just like, yeah, like time is nothing to them. They can afford to wait this shit out. There's such an interesting race. I really should look at more about them.
This galaxy of the vermin that inhabit it. My people shackled the stars and broke mortality when the species you sprang from had barely left the slime pools it spawned in. Our wars burned reality, and the dominion of our kings is without limit. The ground you tread on is not yours. It is ours. The war in heaven was a catastrophic.
Technically, they were there first from their perspective.
Above, quote,
mind you, millions of years ago, but still.
Exist in Warhammer, and in the case of the Necron tier, they were consumed by the star gods. This begs the question, however, if you were to pass on, expire, as one might put it, where would your soul go? The answer to this is the warp. In Warhammer, a soul is real. And so is hell, the afterlife, the Empyrean, the Sea of Souls, the Immaterium. All of these names refer to the dimension parallel to our own, known as the warp. Now, the warp is not like our reality. It does not follow the classic normalcy of time and space. It is defined as the Sea of Souls, and it acts like this in a more literal way than you can realize. To imagine the warp is to imagine the sea itself. Hell is real, and you can surf on it. It has a current and can become more dangerous depending on where you go and how bad the weather is. As the Immaterium is a reflection of our reality and of our souls, all thoughts, all emotions, all
the more bad shit that happens,
a soul is passed on into the warp. If an entire planet decides it's going to engage in a blood-fueled rampage of murder and gore, then the warp around that planet will be affected in a similar manner. It's not something that you can see. It is a parallel, not perpendicular dimension. It is changing. To expose oneself to the warp for any period of time invites certain death outside of the most iron-willed of individuals. And to stare into it will drive one mad. Much like the open seas, things dwell in the warp. Whether these beings were always there and were just emboldened by the carnage of the galaxy, we can only speculate at. At a time, you could say it was more calm, but a certain faction's galactic war in heaven.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing too. It's just how, like, in theory, peaceful, you know, the warp could technically be, or could have been, you know. It's just the case of, but it would have happened eventually. I feel like that the warp would have ended up literally like hell, in a sense, because, like, you know, suffering on a galactic scale over millions of years, I feel like that's bound to happen. But given what has happened, it was fast tracked, let's say, by a lot, you know, and especially with the war in heaven, as I'm sure he's about to mention here. so much evil shit went down, you know what I'm saying? And since then, so much more evil shit has gone down. How many planets with trillions, not trillions, but billions of people on it potentially have just been wiped out completely, right? So all of that going straight into the warp, bad news, very bad news.
It was more calm, but a certain faction's galactic war in heaven didn't do it any favors.
No.
Now the warp is turbulent, and its realms belong to a pantheon of gods known simply as
Chaos.
The forces of chaos are beings that serve directly under their patron deity. There are 4 current gods of chaos at the moment: Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, and Slaanesh. Each of them represent various facets of and emotions of sentient species and play a great game against one another for total control over their realms. Interestingly enough, while their disciples have physical forms we can understand, the chaos gods do not have a physical visual that you can perceive in reality. So
right.
There are tons of fantastic fan art. We do not know what they truly look like, though they are conveniently color-coded. Khorne
right.
is the god of blood and murder, carnage and slaughter. He is the one who is most powered by the wholesale killing of any living thing. For Khorne cares not from where the blood flows. With a sacred number of 8, he is the lord of all things involving killing and blood and gore. The champions are extremely strong as well, with monumental muscles and extremely large weapons.
Big boys.
A true analog to Khorne would be his greater demon, the Bloodthirster, an enormous muscle-bound flying devil with an axe so large it splits tanks in a single swing. They move into battle with armor of brass adorned by the skulls of their foes and pools of freshly spilt blood. This may appear to be quite frightening, of course, demonic, one might say.
Yeah.
But in the world of chaos, all emotions feed one of these gods in one way or another. If you were to define Khorne with single words, you would use blood, carnage, murder, skulls. But you'd be missing out on important ones like strength, honor, prowess, courage, and skill. Khorne is not just about the wholesale slaughter of people. He is about the honor and power of martial combat. The true strength.
There's always a good side and a bad side to the Chaos Gods. It's just
skill. Of course,
it's just usually bad trumps good in most cases, right? So there are good aspects of the Chaos Gods, but it's overcome by just like how wretched the bad things can be, right? Like, you know, it's very brutal. And once we get into Jakari, I think we're gonna see a little bit more of that.
There is investing someone in physical strength and skill. Of course, a murderer would be someone who would feed Khorne, but a soldier could feed Khorne. A martial artist or professional fighter could feed Khorne. A warrior, good or bad, feeds Khorne.
Yes.
A diplomat does not. A premier soldier does. A GoFundMe does not. This is what leads many mortals down the path of Khorne, for he will bless those that bring him enough skulls. And in a world this destructive, there are many ways to reap a high tally for him.
Yeah.
Prepare the dread claws and unchain the mad ones. Glorious battle awaits us today, for the world below has refused to surrender. Let us descend upon them with fury and rage, giving no quarter and sparing only those warriors who fight well enough to earn a place amongst us.
Wow.
As to the rest, their lives and possessions are ours, but their skulls are for Khorne. Normally, if I ever want to explain Khorne, I just kind of show them this clip.
I'd never stab you in the back, Shepard. Warriors like you and me, straight to the face.
Moving on, Tzeentch is the second god, the god of trickery and mischief.
Mass Effect 2 scene, that was great.
Ways, the great conspirator and the architect of fate. With a sacred number of 9, Tzeentch is truly the god of change in all of its forms, but there is an obvious undercurrent of mischief and cunning. Tzeentch is such a liar that his pants have gone thermonuclear.
Where the f is it?
His favorite
Oh my
pastime
God.
is asking questions that have no answers while simultaneously making up answers on the spot to a question he didn't ask.
Literally.
Have you ever had a dream that that you want him to do you so much you could do anything.
He is such a conniving little bastard that every emotion of lying, of scheming,
that's the only answer to that,
is a direct way to help feed him. An unfaithful partner, a politician, a spy. All these people feed Tzeentch in one way or another, and it doesn't matter if the intentions are good. Acceptance does not feed Tzeentch. Change does. Tzeentch doesn't care about your facts. He only wants opinions. Because he represents change, he also represents hope, though. Schemes are not always bad, and even the hope to make a better tomorrow is the change he seeks. Because he is the architect of fate and the mastery of sorcery, his presence is purely unknowable. Every depiction of a Tzeentchian demon contains more eyes than are necessary and more mouths than I know what to do with. It is a biblically accurate angel if the angel gaslit you into thinking birds are government drones. But are they?
But they are.
Adorn themselves with the knowledge of sorceries and the unknown, all to provide a mind-crushing experience. Fighting demons from outside of our reality is difficult enough, but fighting demons from unreality, purposely attempting to trick you, is a whole new thing entirely. And that is before we get started on the gigantic bird of sorcery you're going to need to face. Do not ask which creature screams in the night.
And obviously we I'm pretty sure we in Space Marine 2 we see Tzeentch, right? We see him on the last mission. And I don't even think that's not even him necessarily. That could just be like a greater demon of Tzeentch in a sense, if such thing exists. I'm not entirely too sure. Somebody let me know, of course. I could be incorrect. But you do see kind of an interpretation of what they would look like. You know what I'm saying? And it's pretty fucked up. Not as fucked up as some of the other stuff. Like once we get to Nurgle, oh my god. But yeah, you know, still not something you would want to see, not something you'd want to face by any means. God.
You're going to need to face. Do not ask which creature screams in the night. Do not question who waits for you in the shadow. It is my cry that wakes you in the night, and my body that crouches in the shadow.
God.
I am Tzeentch, and you are the puppet that dances to my tune. Third of the Chaos Gods is the one of acceptance of rot and pestilence, the grandfather himself, Papa Nurgle. Nurgle is the exact opposite of Tzeentch. Where Tzeentch believes in change and hope for a future, Nurgle believes in stagnation and the end of everything.
Yeah.
At one point or another, we will all decay. We will all rot and we will all end. And with a sacred number of 7, every single thing, pestilence, boil, and everything in between comes under the great shadow and girth of Nurgle himself.
Yes.
For Nurgle, the plight of mortals is his fear and wine. And no matter how solid life might be, everything will decay in the end. In the creation of life.
And it's really cool too with Nurgle. It's the acceptance of it. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna happen regardless. So it's better that you just like, you know, accept it, follow me and accept it, you know, and embrace it. And if you embrace it, you know, and that's the cool thing about Nurgle worshippers. They're the happiest fucking demons you've ever seen in your life. Like straight up, the happiest guys. You know, they always got a smile on their face. They're always so happy, you know, but it's because they've completely fucking let it go. You know what I'm saying? They've completely let go and they don't feel pain. There's no pain. There's no suffering. That's the allure of Nurgle. And yeah, they look like fucking monstrosities, but you know, they're not in pain. And it's a very interesting concept that's dealt with Nurgle to me. I think it's very interesting.
Everything will decay in the end. In the creation of life, there must be an end to that life. And nobody has more creations to end lives than Grandfather Nurgle himself. Every boil, every blemish, every pus-filled wound and disease, every rot and every plague is kept and concocted by Nurgle.
Yes.
Humorously keeps Nurgle as a jovial god.
Yeah.
He is full of life and
he's so happy. Yeah.
And by creating as many diseases as he possibly can, he shares that joy with mortals. I mean, His envoy is the Great Unclean One. And look at how happy he is.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of him to love. A fear of death in general is feeding Nurgle. All disease makes him stronger, but to pray for salvation for a wounded loved one is to feed Nurgle. The timeless and inevitable fear that one day you will rot and decay is what gives him strength. The Peloton won't feed Nurgle. Licking the doorknob on a public bathroom certainly does. However, should you embrace
Good way to put it.
grandfather's gifts, you may find an end to your pain.
Yeah, that's just it.
All mortal followers of the Chaos Gods found themselves there in one way or another, either through the direct worship or the slow corrupting of their souls. But those that take Nurgle's gifts and embrace the decay of their bodies may end up being chosen among his few as a faithful servant. In doing so, you will be free of the pain caused by Nurgle's ailments, and you may even find yourself just as jovial and happy as he is. Maybe. His enemies shall wither and die. His allies shall wither and die. The universe and all within it shall wither and die. And when the great corruption has settled over the land and permeated the very foundations of reality itself, then shall the Lord of all rise from the rot and ruin, spread his arms wide to reclaim all of his dutiful children. Those were the three major chaos gods for a very long time, emboldened by war and death on a galactic scale, ever present, but now fact on the suffering of a galaxy. One race, for a while, was able to elude the pull of chaos, an advanced race of psychically attuned aliens whose master over the physical world was so strong that chaos could not glean from them the morsels of power they once had, or so they couldn't. Not for a long while. 60 million years ago, in an attempt to combat the Necrons in Catan, the Old Ones made a new species. One with innate power in the warp and the ability to harness it with a mastery that was unseen by so many others. A mastery so powerful,
the Eldar.
The Necrons retreated to sleep in order to wait it out.
Yeah.
It was no longer a galaxy to be ruled by them, but in
the Eldar were fucking badasses back in the day, and they're honestly only really limited in 40k by their lack of numbers, right? And the fact that, in a sense, infighting as well, right? Between the Drukhari and the Craft World Eldar. You know what I'm saying? Two different differences of opinion. How are we going to lead our empire? But the Craft World Empire, or the Craft Worlds, they do things for their benefit, but that isn't beneath helping other races when it benefits them as well, right? Like, they'll help the humans out if it means putting down some Tyranids that are fucking like going to obliterate everything, for example, like shit like that, or chaos, which is going to come and kill them all. Like, everyone doesn't care, right? It's not discriminatory. So, you know, it's they'll go out of their way sometimes to help if they can help, but not if it does not benefit them directly. They're still in it for themselves, 100%.
In order to wait it out, it was no longer a galaxy to be ruled by them, but instead begin the age of the Eldar are a race of pointed-eared humanoids that are all psychically attuned to the warp. If we're being meta here, these are space elves, and these elves ruled the galaxy in the time the Necrons went to sleep and humanity began to rise.
Yes.
The Eldar's empire was galaxy-wide and lasted for longer than any other galactic power that we know of. Their understanding of all things
That's largely due to the webway.
With every single one of them being psychers, they had the ability to master the warp and use it to their advantage.
Yes.
See, being a psyker is basically like being a wizard, or I guess in this case it's more of a sorcerer, since you are born with the gifts as opposed to learning them. In order to utilize your psychic abilities, however, you must then reach into the other dimension, into the warp, into hell for that power. So if you were to say, cast Fireball, your mind would reach into the warp, gather the strength to rewrite reality, to then cast Fireball. Now, you might think to yourself, doesn't that mean if you are opening up a power to the warp, you may create a lot of risk to yourself?
Yes.
Because of all the horrible things we just talked about in the warp? Yes.
Yeah.
However, in Warhammer 40k, willpower is a real, tangible thing
That
in the
too.
sense that in its own right, it can be weaponized. Being strong of will means being strong of soul. And being strong of soul means you can resist the pull of the warp that much more. A more inexperienced psyker opens up a hole into the warp that is large.
Is this
and
from
that
Dark
hole
Tide?
widens to get more power, allowing evil things to get in. A powerful psyker is able to open a very small hole, but with immense force to get the same amount of power with less risk. The Eldar are master psychers. Every single one of them can call upon the warp, and over millions of years they have perfected it so much so that they can weave structures out of it. In some species in the galaxy, they utilize the warp itself for interstellar travel. The Eldar ain't having any of that noise.
No.
Probably utilize a fancy alternative mode of travel that is substantially safer than the old ones created called the webway.
Literally.
Without dying. Miss me with that. We no longer age.
They got
And
soul
if we do,
stones.
we can just be reborn like that. Food, water, materials. We make things out of distilled warp essence itself. We
Literally.
sing unreality into cathedrals to dine in. What truly could the Eldari Empire possibly fear?
Themselves. Too much of it.
The Eldari Empire's biggest fear was themselves.
Literally.
A society so perfect they wanted for naught, and this led them down dark and dangerous paths.
They
When
had
the
too
base
much,
functions
yeah.
of society are no longer a problem for you. You tend to experiment.
Go a
Perhaps
little
the
too
medium
far.
rare steak on your plate would be better if it was elf meat. Hey, I'm not saying we should make cannibalism legal, but like, what's the issue with a little taste? Violent sports is one thing, but how come we don't do sports to the death? I mean,
Literally.
I'm just saying, like, if both participants are willing and clear about it, like, what really is the problem there, you know? Art is in the eye of the viewer, and what is considered art is completely up to the concept of one's own interest. A canvas adorned with the blood of a man wronged is truly the visual poetry that our society needs.
Wow.
Hedonism with a slow and consistent,
Because they got
hedonism.
bored.
The Eldar slid backwards into debauchery of the sort
Decadence.
I cannot discuss on this YouTube video.
Yeah.
Murder on stage, delicacies and drugs distilled from one another, the trade of slaves and concubines, and much worse. The Eldar physiology has their emotions heightened, and they can feel more than a human does. So while it can provide lows of pure despair, it can also provide greater highs than you have ever known. And swinging between the two of them was the Eldar game. The warp took notice of this heavily. And it began to react on a galactic scale. The debauchery,
Because it's like, yeah, to the warp, it's like, how does it react to that with a civilization galaxy spanning en masse, fucking constantly back and forth, very good, very bad in an instant, right? And it's just their society in general, because they're just too decadent. They just, you know, you can be revived. You have unlimited food, you know, you have unlimited consumer goods. You know, you're not in a want of anything. So then when you're not in a want of anything, when there's nothing to work towards anymore, what do you do except go into excess, baby? You know what I'm saying? That's what it is.
and it began to react. On a galactic scale, the debauchery and the hedonism of the Eldar race caused levels of warp storm so pronounced and so volatile that it cut off interstellar travel for all those who used it.
And I wonder too, like, was this like, it obviously had to be over the course of a long time that this was building and building and building, but it's just like, God, you know, like, I wonder if there was any what's the word, warning that this was going to happen, and I'm assuming they just ignored it because they're like, ah, fuck, it doesn't affect us, right? We don't care. But I wonder if there was anything telling that this could have potentially been in the making, in the happening, be it be a warp storm, or if it all just kind of fucking happened at once, suddenly, you know. Interesting.
That it cut off interstellar travel for all those who used it. Communications between planets was removed, and a nightmarish era of old night began.
Yeah.
This continued for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands of years. The Eldar all but removed from the problems being caused as they entered heights of more and more ecstasy.
So yes, there was complete fuckery. That answers that question. There was complete fuckery going on everywhere else, and the Eldar just were like, it's not our issue. It's not our problem. It doesn't affect us. Fuck it. You know, who cares? You know, obviously it's going to affect them here.
The problems being caused as they entered heights of more and more ecstasy. They needed more and more and more. Nothing was ever enough. More murder, more torture. It's art, it's delicacies, it's life. This silence offends Slaanesh.
What? Yeah. Yikes.
Slaanesh, the prince of pleasure, she who thirsts, the god of unspeakable excess, is our fourth chaos god, with the sacred number of 6 adorning their title. Slaanesh is a bit of a tricky one, because with our other 3 chaos gods, there was a certain understanding of human emotions and desires, but for Slaanesh, that desire is how they get their power. The words to be used would be decadence, pleasure, perfection, passion, excess, and many others. The pursuit of more, the want to do more, experience more, become more. That's what gives Slaanesh their gifts. A lot of people believe that Slaanesh is something that originates with sex, specifically, and it makes sense why they assume that. The visuals
but it's not,
of Slaanesh patrons are all very lithe and sexual, but they are also intentionally androgynous to appear attractive to a variety of intrigues. To think that Slaanesh specifically derives from sex would be mistaken. While it is true that a lot of humanity's actions can relate to getting laid, and Slaanesh is the dark prince of desire, it's more on the lines of feeling an excess of an emotion. It is excessive touch and scent and desire, and a lot of that has to do with sex. That's why it looks like sex, but it's more than just that. A patron of the arts may feed Slaanesh, one that aspires to become the perfect chef, master of their craft.
Ambition, almost.
Pursuit of that
the want to be the best. Always doing more.
Absolute favorite film. Videos where people beat Elden Ring on a dance pad feed Slaanesh.
There are no 2 words in the English language more harmful than good job.
But is there a line?
No, man, no.
This also moves into the concept of feeling. Sensation is a majorly Slaanesh-coded thing. You might start off feeling good, but then you get to play around a little bit, you know? You play with a little bit of pain. Light pain might not be enough, so you might want more. Or inflicting the pain could be your jam. Music can increase to volumes that may hurt your ears, and even then that might not be enough. More. You must have more. Many of the disciples of Slaanesh carry a demonic form in their lithe grace. The keeper of secrets is his chosen envoy, and their movements are a blur of dance and pain with an aura all the more fatal. They dance and sing, but there's always a form of malice behind every action they take. An alluring gaze that will pull you in right before the demonic entity can crush you in that grip. Slaanesh's
literally
has 6 layers surrounding it, and one of them is the excess of gluttony, where the participant finds themselves in a beautiful banquet full of the most delicious foods imaginable. Tables of delicacies and rivers of wine tempt the user to such a degree that they cannot stop stuffing their face, unaware that the things they are eating are very vaguely familiar meat. If one does not see themselves drowning in the river of wine, they may soon fill their bodies up so much that they cease to function and fall over, becoming part of the banquet themselves.
Wow.
That is one of these 6 layers of Slaanesh's palace.
Wow.
This
I actually don't know of Slaanesh's palace.
The Eldar civilization
That's fucked up.
In for millennia.
Yeah.
They did so at a monumental scale that they create a god from it. Find pleasure in every moment. Indulge in every whim.
I'm really liking these quotes he breaks out.
The burden of their crude lives. We are beyond such concerns or worries. Every power is ours to use, every sensation ours to experience. We are truly masters of the galaxy, and all others exist only to satisfy our curiosities.
God damn.
We have earned our position of power. Let us forever taste the fruits of such achievement. Time itself is ours to command. We are eternal.
Wow. What the fuck?
With the birth of
Holy
Slaanesh,
shit.
the Eldari Empire ceased to be. A catastrophic event so horrible that the warp ripped a hole permanently in our reality.
Yeah, like when Slaanesh was born, man, shit went south so fucking quickly for everyone else, and no one else more so than the Eldar, and it was their own causing, right? Now, obviously, real space itself, they weren't really affected by it. The Eldar, up until this point, was probably getting ravaged, absolutely fucked. But you know, the Eldar were away from all that, removed from all that, and now they're feeling it. Some bad shit's happening. What happens when Slaanesh is born? Let's find out here.
So horrible that the warp ripped a hole permanently in our reality. A fissure forever known as the Eye of Terror.
Yeah.
With the sudden inhalation of this god's largest breath, the Eldari souls are a currency to be now collected.
Literally.
By she who thirsts. Trillions of Eldar died in an instant.
Literally.
Slaanesh gorging on their souls to satisfy his palate. 99.9% of their entire species died, and the rest are doomed to a fate worse than death. For Slaanesh now stakes a claim on each and every Eldar soul. From the moment they pass on, an eternity of torment awaits them. The remaining Eldar devote their entire lives to stopping this eventuality. Their dying race, so devoted to saving themselves.
But there's a few ways that they do that, exactly.
In doing so, have found very creative ways.
Yes. The craft world Eldar.
In the modern world of Warhammer, the
good
Eldar
Eldar.
are the main force of Eldar in the galaxy and represent the elf style that many think of when you think elves in space. Fantasy elves in space, not those elves.
Oh.
We'll get to them.
No.
The craft world is a monumentally large starship, the size of a continent, that acts as a form of flotilla. During the highest reaches of hedonism,
They're kind of, if you've played Mass Effect, they're almost like the not the Quarians. They're almost like the Quarians, right? You know how the Quarians are like a nomadic, like space people in a sense. They got kicked off their homeworld. That's kind of what I initially thought of the Eldar as, and with their craft worlds, obviously on a much larger scale now, mind you. But yeah, they have these massive ships. They're always moving. You know what I'm saying? They're kind of nomadic in a sense, right? But yeah, no, that's the comparison I made to them when I first started learning about them. Obviously, their culture, their nuances, much different. But I think of those ships kind of like that in a sense, if you've ever played Mass Effect.
As a form of flotilla. During the highest reaches of hedonism, many Eldar saw the demonic writing on the wall and began to try and seek asylum from their own debauchery. Those Eldar left on monumental craft worlds into the far reaches of the galaxy and saved themselves from Slaanesh's awakening. The main thing the craft world Eldar seek is to temper their minds and bodies in a way that will never allow them to slide back into their old ways. The representation they carry is that of a more feudal Japanese motif. Eldar follow paths as they age, the path of the warrior, the seer, the poet, the diplomat, the bone singer, and so on. These paths are a strict code of conduct to hone the heightened Eldar psychology down a school of thought and action. And if it sounds a hell of a lot like Bushido, well, you're damn right. Here's a medal and a soul stone. Don't lose it or an eternity of torment awaits you.
Literally.
Going through these paths will allow you to take up not just a role in Eldar society, but keep your mind clear from the past worries that plagued them. Every Eldar is said to be a psychic,
something to focus on.
Very few of them actually utilize their psychic powers for fear of tempting she who thirsts. A large amount of emphasis is also put on ancestors of the Eldar, and learning from them the farther you go down a path. This can sometimes be seen by the large variety of jewels adoring the armor of Eldar.
Oh.
Those are called soul stones, the biggest middle finger to Slaanesh they can think of. So
interesting.
when Eldar dies, these
I didn't know those were soul stones on their armor.
And instead of their souls going to Slaanesh, they are then trapped and stored in this little stone. So when the Eldar say they commune with their ancestors, they mean so very literally, as the spirit and soul of generations before them are stored here. Often larger structures may contain vast amounts of soul stones, such as the Infinity Circuit in the craft world itself, allowing the souls of the dead to help power their enormous starship. The young do not desire the discipline of the path, but rather their curiosity drives them to try every fruit from the tree. Thus, it is that so many take the path of wandering or the path of damnation in their first years of adulthood. And so, the great tragedy of our kind is played out again and again as the number of our people shrink from generation to generation. These paths, when completed, allow an Eldar to move to the next one, then the next one. However, since this is the grim darkness of the world, many of these paths rely on combat. The Eldar actually had gods at one point. Cain, Vol, Isha, Azrael, and so on. These gods are aspects of the Eldar pantheon, and while many were killed in
and that's the thing too, they were actual gods, right? And that's an interesting concept too, getting into like the Emperor of Mankind videos, and even Amber King's recent Gilliman video, recent I should say, you know, it wasn't really that recent, I suppose, years ago I suppose, but recent to me. We recently watched it is what I should say. You know, it's the idea of, can the Emperor ascend godhood? Could Gilliman, in a sense, ascend godhood? You know, could he be divine just by enough people believing it? Gods were a physical, real thing, not physical in a sense, but they were a very, very real thing to the Eldar. You know, they existed in a sense. Now, obviously, with, you know, 99.9% of your population getting wiped out, their power diminishes more than a little bit, and, you know, Slaanesh is out there, so let's see what happens to them.
These gods are aspects of the Eldar pantheon, and while many were killed in Slaanesh's creation, their teachings live on. For some, the strongest devotion to the Eldar gods is to join the Aspect Warriors and embody the wrath of Cain, their god of war. While guardians of the Eldar craft worlds are more akin to a trained militia, the Aspect Warriors embody a particular variant of the path. Each are led by a Phoenix Lord, a name passed down from generations and embodying the souls of prior Phoenix Lords with each new one. The Howling Banshees, led by Jane Czar, Furion and his Fire Dragons, Baharoth and his Swooping Hawks, or Malgan Ra and his Dark Reapers.
Goddamn.
Each Aspect Shrine carries with it the Eldar way of war. Fast, hard-hitting, and incredibly tricksy, for they do not have the numbers to fight in any other way. The Craftworld Eldar show
they don't have the numbers for conventional warfare.
By their own actions. They once ruled the galaxy in an honest, non-hyperbolic way, but in the end, they were bested by themselves, and their most prominent remnants are forced to drift aimlessly through the galaxy, trying to save their species from extinction and resist the temptations of she who thirsts. But for some, the party, it's just beginning.
Oh god. Oh no. That's not what I was expecting for the Jakari intro.
Once existed as a port in the webway that allowed for ease of transport.
That's awesome.
For the Eldar between its various domains. The significance of this city meant that it needed to be a bit more of a neutral territory outside of the jurisdiction of general Eldar law, and therefore it was allowed to self-govern. This did not go well. The Dark City became the hideaway for all manner of sin. The Eldar race slipped into debauchery on a galactic scale that it birthed a god, and this was the city you went to when that wasn't enough.
Literally.
The convenience of being so deep within the webway was that it exists as a blind spot to the horrors of the warp. So while the rest of the Eldar fled the downfall of their species, Kamara kept partying. When Slaanesh was birthed, they were saved the worst of it, thanks to them being nice and neatly tucked away inside the webway.
They hid.
But only somewhat. The Dark Prince did not have a grip around their soul, but the tiniest pinky finger, and they were still pulling. But due to their excess hedonism, they found a solution to this problem. If they tormented others, they could temporarily rejuvenate their souls and continue to cheat their inevitable death by placating the Prince of Pleasure. And if they kept this up on the regular, they could effectively become immortal. Thus, the Drukhari were born. Unlike the more stoic elves you see in works of fiction, the Drukhari themselves exist as a sort of analog of the more grim and fiendish elves you find in Norse and European mythology. The Drukhari are soul vampires, but the more basic means to feed are hardly enough to keep them going. This desire to feed is known as the thirst, and to
they have to commit.
They have mastered the art.
They essentially have to commit atrocity to keep themselves going. It's extremely fucked up, and this just rejuvenates them. You know what I'm saying? So they can stave off going to Slaanesh and facing that torment for themselves if they commit that torment onto others. It's you know, Slaanesh doesn't ignore them, but it placates them, I guess we could say. You know, it placates Slaanesh. You know, it keeps them like, okay, you know what, fine, I won't completely fuck you over, but you're still gonna have to do this. And that's the thing too. This is the Eldar that never stopped doing what they were doing, so they love this shit. They live for this type of shit. You know what I'm saying? They're all for it. They're like, hell yeah, the party's never stopped, as he says. You know, as Bricky says there.
Known as the thirst. And to quench it effectively, they have mastered the art of biotechnology and dark sciences to really juice themselves up on the crispy soul sprite from the vending machine called the Galaxy. The majority of Drukhari act as pirates and raiders and slavers. They go into our physical reality and drag people back to Kamara to commit atrocities that go beyond any imaginative torture a human can think of. The Drukhari are organized in various groups throughout the Dark City to accomplish this in a more organized and extremely brutal way. The Cabals act as the main warriors of the city, led by their Archons. Witches and Succubi act as entertainment for Kamara in gladiatorial arenas.
Oh god.
Flesh crafting homunculus keep the Drukhari alive and discover ever increasingly more painful ways to torment their ever increasingly large supply of slaves they are brought. The Dark Eldar see the other inhabitants of the galaxy as little more than cattle, livestock that can be brought to bay or slaughtered at any time. Their fodder, however, is not meat and muscle, but the anguish and despair of the weak. The Dark Eldar do indeed drink blood, but also tears, and most sustaining of all, the raw essence of pain they wring out of their captives. The truth of the matter is that Drukhari sustain themselves on the suffering of others, not just morally, but physically. Kamara is a city rife with backstabbing schemes and murder. It is the worst back alleys of the worst ghettos at the best of times. Nothing is more horrifying to a Drukhari than death, for death will see them in the talons of Slaanesh for an eternity of torment. So they do everything they can,
because they don't have soul stones, I don't think.
Like covens,
maybe they do, but I don't think so.
From pieces of flesh as bargaining chips. The Succubi create grisly gladiatorial spectacles that literally rejuvenate the audience members as captives are murdered for sport. To be captured by the Drukhari is one of, if not the worst fate imaginable in the world of Warhammer 40k.
Yes.
In a universe built on war crimes, they are the most debased war crimers of all time. To be tortured and sacrificed in the gladiatorial arenas is a blessing.
Literally.
They escaped the fate of being in these flesh smiths control group, or being turned into a living and breathing piece of furniture for an Archon's quarters. In a cruel twist of fate, a newly born Drukhari does not arrive into this world loving torture. It is something they must grow to love. Grow to appreciate the suffering of other beings in order to survive in the world they have been brought into. If they succeed, they become some of the worst monsters in the known galaxy, a dark reflection to the craft worlders and a taste of what Eldar society was like before the fall. If they do not succeed, they must find purchase elsewhere. Often those will join smaller parts of Eldar society like the Exodites or the Harlequins. Exodites believe in a pre-industrial variant of their society, often retreating to more lush worlds to ride dinosaurs and live off the land.
Goddamn
style that I would normally laugh at if they weren't riding dinosaurs like ballers. The Harlequin dancing troupe are a subsection.
The Harlequin are interesting.
Are more than just a little strange.
Yeah.
A carnival of dancing jesters that serve the Eldar laughing god of Kegarak. They arrive never when expected and leave just as quickly. Blurs of light carry their footsteps as they dance their foes into a grave. Combat is just as much of a joke as it is a play on bloody murder. They travel and aid many other Eldar and sometimes even humanity for reasons we can never understand. Perhaps one day we would have, were they not stripped of their army book and folded into the Eldari Codex.
What?
So I suppose it'll have to stay a mystery.
That's kind of fucked up.
One of Kegarak's master plans to get back at she who thirsts and save their species. Who can know? Perhaps it was all a sick
some copium
joke to Kegarak, and he would just find it very funny to watch me fumble the discussion of one human on a tiny blue planet across the galaxy. Oh, speaking of.
Oh, good segue.
Before the
good
fall
segue.
of Eldar, Earth, or Terra, as it's called, was in ruin. One man,
quote unquote,
wants to put the pieces back together.
Again, calling the Emperor a man. It's not incorrect, but like, goddamn, you know what I mean? You can't. It's such a fucking like inaccuracy, I guess, to exactly what he is. You know, if you don't know anything about Warhammer, you know, the Emperor is fucking. He's so base, just the shit he can do. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing manly about him. You know what I'm saying? Or human about him, almost. You know, besides an appearance, and even his appearance is almost up to him. Not almost, it is up to him. He controls how you perceive him in a sense, right? Very, very, you know, interesting character, and there's a lot of lore on him, you know, and you kind of have to form your own opinion over him. I'm interested to see what Bricky has to say about him here.
Man.
Exactly, man. Quotation marks.
Together. Where did he come from? We don't know. Some say he was the result of early shamans. Some say he is the final old one who escaped their species genocide. And those that are smartest know the answer is it doesn't matter.
Literally.
He revealed himself as the Emperor of Mankind, and he was tasked with the most monumental upheaval of humanity possible. The Eldari's warp fluctuations had turned the golden age of humanity into old night. Interstellar travel cut off? Check. An AI uprising? Check. Brand new psychers popping up and not knowing how to handle their powers? Oh, check. Demonic incursions? Check.
Yeah.
Thousands of years
with psychers that don't know what they're doing.
Emperor of Mankind
demonic incursions just happening. Fucking terrifying, man.
Together. Unifying Terra under his rule, the Emperor founded the
easy to see why some planets accepted them openly, other planets just got rid of them.
He was
the benefit and the risk,
and nothing could stand against him. He wished to remove mankind from the yoke of its former failures, and he knew he would be the best leader they could have because he was right. AI banned, religion banned. You did as the Emperor told you, or his Thunder Warriors would put you in your place. That place often being a grave.
The ground.
Terra was thriving, but humanity needed to reclaim its long-lost brethren scattered across the stars. But to do so, he needed those that could build him a fleet truly meant for the reconquering of the galaxy. And so he turned his attention to the red planet of Mars.
Cool intro for the
Mars
Mechanicus.
and Terra were close allies long before the Unification Wars.
Yeah.
Mars was the first world terraformed by humanity and became what would ultimately be the first hive world, an epicenter for industry and technology. The Age of Strife did not treat the red planet kindly, however. Mars was cut off from Terra during this time, and the warp storms that ravaged the planet turned it into an absolute nuclear hellscape. Those who were on the surface were turned into your run-of-the-mill mutant if they even survived the bombings they inflicted on themselves. But others were lucky enough to escape beneath the red sands in powerful fallout shelters. These became their generational habitats, but this resulted in extreme reliance on technology and those who could use it. They began to view the technology keeping them alive less as a technological advancement and more of a divine intervention, with those skilled in it as priests.
Yes, that's what makes them so interesting. Is it's like the obviously religion is banned, right? But is the machine spirit banned, right? No, it's not. You know, there's nothing wrong with the machine spirit. And obviously, you know, it gets into the conversation, what is a machine spirit, you know? Any amount of technology to the Mechanicus is sacred. They've come to revel in it, right? And they don't really care about progression so much as they care about preservation, I think. That's the main thing. Obviously, they do still progress, but they're much, much more concerned about preserving, I think, in their actions, you know? Preserving and unlocking, let's say.
Divine intervention, with those skilled in it as priests. The Martians began to worship the power of the machine.
Yeah.
And this resulted in the formation of the cult Mechanicus, the belief in a holy trinity known as the 3-in-1. The machine god, serving as the spirit who gave rise to all technologies known, the motive force, the deity that gives all life its ability to live, and the Omnissiah, a physical manifestation of the machine god itself.
Yeah.
This belief began to manifest in them physically as well. What were once humans began to really mess around with the character creator options.
Yeah.
And this tech obsession made them view instances of flesh to be weak and spend their lives removing what makes them human and replacing it with mechanical augments.
Which is very interesting.
Glowing eyes, mechadendrite arms. What was once a mass of flesh now looks like the back of a router. And the oldest members of the Mechanicus no longer even look slightly human.
No.
In addition to this, cloaked over all of their mechanical appendages are robes that reflect the color of their homeworld, the red robes of the Mechanicus. The Cult Mechanicum, now the Adeptus Mechanicus, create a fascinating combination of cultures all birthed into one.
Literally.
Basically, techno-zealot monks. Organic life is the machine god's greatest accomplishment within the scope of the great work. All praise he who is 3-in-1. By giving us life within an organic shell, he presents us with the means and opportunity to improve upon physicality, as is his divine plan. He grants us complex weakness so we might learn metallic strength and ascend to his level of machinic perfection.
That's a very interesting way to put it. I haven't heard that quote before. That one's very good. Wow.
While the room is on fire.
Very, very compelling quote there. I'm not going to lie. I haven't quite like heard it be put in that way. But yeah, no, they see their flesh as a weakness, as a complete holdback to their actual potential, right? And they see this machine spirit as guiding them on that challenge. They're putting human bodies to be challenged. It's a challenge to overcome. Very interesting way to put it. I haven't heard that quote.
Emperor's arrival to Mars was very much a walking in with the pizzas while the room is on fire moment. But to the Mechanicum, they saw his arrival as confirmation of their belief. They took one look at the glowing golden entity that showed up on their doorstep and were like, that's him. That's the guy right there. And they immediately accepted him as the Omnissiah. Obviously, showing up and being called Machine Jesus shortly after wiping out all instances of non-Machine Jesus a little bit beforehand is an instance of capital H heresy.
Literally.
But the Emperor saw the bigger picture. Were they strange with how they rubbed unguents on themselves, burned incense, and prayed to machines for them to work? Sure, but that's a lot of production right there.
Yeah.
So the Emperor devised the Treaty of Olympus Mars.
It's fine, I guess.
Agreement between Terra and Mars, and this union would be permanently etched into the Aquila of the Imperium as the two-headed eagle. One head for Terra, and the other for Mars. The forces of the Emperor would be supplied with all the technology and weapons they needed to reunite the scattered remnants of humanity under one banner, and the Mechanicum of Mars would be able to keep doing what they were doing religiously and scientifically so long as they kept up their tithes. This tithe meant total quality control over all technology in the Imperium. Is it a big spaceship? AdMech take care of that. Tanks? AdMech take care of that. The literal bullets in a gun? You guessed it. But unlike the factories of today, the forge worlds of Mars and the creations of the Mechanicum are a bit of a different experience altogether.
Yeah.
Instead of a factory on a random given world, the entirety of the planet's surface is dedicated to manufacturing. That's a little tricky, isn't it? Considering that the usage of silica animus, or AI, is a big no-no and basically the largest affront to their divine machine god possible.
Yeah. So how do we get around this? You know what I'm saying? How do we get around this illegal AI? Well, man, I could really wonder how. You know, I mean, we got plenty of people, right? But they're still not good enough. Humans are so weak. Their humans are so fragile. I mean, they can't be good workers. What can we possibly do to remedy this problem?
And basically the largest affront to their divine machine god.
God, those look awful.
There's a really neat alternative that they've come up with. And that's called a servitor. Incredible devices that can do anything from manufacturing, maintenance, basic door operation, even just float around like a helpful little drone. It's an extremely easy process too. All you need to do is take a human who is dying or preferably an enemy of the state, most likely,
and then you take a blender
and lobotomize them.
Yeah.
And then reprogram
exactly.
To do exactly what they tell you. They even got little baby versions of them. Yay! So now you can rest easy knowing that the entirety of the
and then they're gonna stick some appendages and whatnot on you as well.
And learning new tech is
probably to improve your work
run on
outload.
Slaves. Whether they deserve it or not is unimportant, and whether they can still keep their consciousness trapped in their own minds is another thing entirely.
Wow. That's fucked up.
An excerpt from the Servitor creation factories. Naked human beings were standing in a switch-packed line between high fences. The manufacturer produced servitors, but it was more akin to an abattoir than a workshop. Every surface was easily cleanable. Servitors with spray units surgically attached to their backs prowled about, hosing filth from slit drains set into the perfectly smooth, slanted floors. As the line slowly advanced, the people were passed through various scanning devices, most of them mounted in ugly, functional arches that let out a constant series of acceptance chimes. Occasionally, one would let out an angry blare, and the indicator lumens would flash red. The rejected person was then swallowed up by a trapdoor opening beneath their feet. From these pits wafted a hideous stench and the grinding sounds of industrial mincers. One rejected man grabbed onto the lip and hung there, arms and hands bloodied, shouting a stream of defiant profanities. Guards lined the grating either side of him and shocked him until he fell. The adepts wouldn't even waste bullets on these people. The trapdoor flipped up, and the next terrified person was ushered forward. Violent metal arms snatched them up and spread-eagled them in the air, and a servitor shearer shaved them all over. At another, they were subjected to a high-pressure counter-septic wash whose chemical stink made me choke from 100 feet away. More scanners, more rejects winnowed out. Machines forcibly dressed them in a heavy rubberized garment common to all monotask servitors. These were saggy on them, all one size, until another process shrank them to fit their bodies, where metal cuffs, sockets, and collars bit into vulnerable flesh. The last few prayers gave way to screams at that point, and even the most stoic shouted in pain. They were ushered over a floor, buzzing with power that made them shriek with every footstep. "What's that for?" I asked. "Follicular inhibitor, to stop their hair from growing," he said. Freaking sweet, Lois. As for their scientific pursuits,
crazy motherfuckers, man.
Preservation of knowledge above all, and the quest to expand it. However, as opposed to just innovating and inventing on their own,
they don't do that. They don't do that.
They believe that it is a form of tech heresy. Because of their viewpoints on technology itself, they believe that the instruction booklet itself is just as
that's a holy
as
text.
the Lego set builds. And
Yes.
to innovate on that without the proper written knowledge is to go against the divine word of the machine god itself.
Yes.
All knowledge is already in the universe. You simply need to rediscovering it and attempting to invent something to improve upon divinity is very heretical.
Yes.
Prior to the Age of Strife,
Because you can't improve upon divinity. That's the thing.
Known as standard template constructs, or STCs. These devices were, as far as we know, supercomputers with the ability to pull up and detail how to create literally anything.
And you see like so many instances too throughout 40k where the Mechanicus will do literally anything to get their hands on these, or the Imperium in general, and you can see why. They're literally the blueprints for something new, and in the Mechanicus's eyes, it's probably the only way they're ever going to utilize something new is if they find the STC for it. Because again, you can't improve upon divinity; it's already there. You just have to find it. Oh, we found it. Okay, then it's clear. It's able to be made. But goddamn, if you stick an extra rifle on that unit, I swear to God, you're gonna get fucking torched. Like,
computers with the ability to pull up and detail how to create literally anything a startup colony would need. Essentially, they were devices with the entirety of human technological know-how so that you could make a home away from home. The Mechanicum will not make anything without an STC. Quite literally nothing, because this is the knowledge they seek, and that knowledge is divine. One time, scouts of the Imperial Guard found a functioning STC that provided the schematics on a knife that happened to be a bit lighter and a bit sharper than most other knives. These knives were adopted by 30 Space Marine chapters and were one of the most advanced discoveries of the century. This discovery was so significant that they were each awarded a planet for finding this.
oh my God.
A planet for a machine that taught them how to make knives.
Yeah, a lighter knife that's a bit sharper.
The Mechanicum are organized.
They take that shit very seriously.
Individuals in power being a part of the priesthood. Not being the fabricator general of Mars itself, who serves as a high lord of Terra, but also oversees the entirety of the Mechanicum below. Below them are tech priests that oversee the cult for the quest of knowledge and other more straightforward theocracy. Forge worlds tend to operate slightly more independently, what can cause some power struggles within the Mechanicum.
Of course.
Because, you know, despite them all being weird robots, they love being given praise. And despite being the manufacturing end of the Imperium,
yeah, the Mechanicus are devious. They do a lot of devious shit.
Scutari private army and all their various 1920s Martian style mechanisms like doom crawlers, Castellan robots, and of course, the Titan legions. Because nothing is cooler than a robot that towers over buildings.
Literally. The Titans are the sickest shit, man. Knights too. Dreadnoughts, all of them.
Becoming absent, thus causing
Mechanicus makes it, they're sick. Anything that walks.
The lack of ambition to create anything new and the wholesale murder of anyone who even tries leads to things becoming derelict. I'm grown weary of this flesh I was born into, strangely disgusted by its nature. I crave only the cold, clean certainty of steel and silicon, that I might become one with the blessed machine. I do not expect you to understand, you who cling to your flesh as if it were immortal, seeking only to preserve it, to protect it. One day you will see the folly of your ways, and then no doubt you will come begging to my order to preserve you. After the groundwork had been set unification-wise, it was time to start getting things together for the Emperor's great crusade across the stars to bring humanity under one banner.
Of course.
The Thunder Warriors were a perfect fighting force for unifying Terra and Luna, but the galaxy was a whole different thing.
Yeah.
You see, these warriors weren't soldiers in the eyes of the Emperor. They were tools, extremely blunt tools used for the fast conquest of Terra. As the Emperor was concerned, the tools you use at home aren't the same ones you take on a road trip. So the Emperor rid himself of his tools in the exact manner you think he did, and he went forward to crafting a brand new tool. One more mobile, more efficient, and ready for his next era of conquest. They shall be my finest warriors, these men who give of themselves to me. Like clay, I shall mold them, and in the furnace of war forge them. They will be of iron will and steely muscle. In great armor shall I clad them, and with the mightiest guns will they be armed. They will be untouched by plague or disease. No sickness will blight them. They will have tactics, strategies, and machines so that no foe can best them in battle. They will be my bulwark against the terror. They are the defenders of humanity. They are my soul.
Space Marines. Nice.
And they shall know no fear. The vastness of the Milky Way galaxy meant that the Emperor needed assistance bringing everyone back to the fold.
Of course.
And who better to do this than himself? But since the technology to be in many places at once does not exist anymore, the Emperor decided that it was time to become a dad, the same way Geppetto did, and with far less care. It is not my son, Haakon. None of them are. They are warlords, generals, tools bred to serve a purpose, just as legions were bred to serve a purpose. What a dad. The Primarch Project was started to—
I haven't heard that quote direct either, but yeah, that's kind of crazy. So like, you know, because he does show care seemingly for certain Primarchs at a time, right? But to hear a quote like that, it's like, that's brutal. You know, that kind of confirms everything we almost thought, you know, goddamn.
Legions were bred to serve a purpose. What a dad. The Primarch Project was started to create charismatic and unique leaders in the Imperial military. The diversity of these eventual leaders meant that each one could be specialized for certain circumstances across the galaxy. Depending on the type of conflict, one leader might be better than the other. So instead of forcing one leader to acclimate to a situation directly, it would be better to send a specialized leader and force to handle it. In order to do this, the Emperor used his genetic know-how and maybe a little bit of that forbidden stuff to create these genetically perfect gene fathers that had the ability to serve as his analog directly, and also serve as the leaders of the respective Space Marine legions. All 18, that's right, all 19 of his sons were meant to be directly molded by the Emperor himself, despite their genetic differences. And they go as follows in order: Lionel Johnson, Fulgrim, Perturabo, Jagatai Khan, Lehman Russ, Roland Dorn, Conrad Kurz, Sanguinius, Garrus Manus, Angron, Rohute Gilliman, Mortarion, Magnus the Red, Horus Lupercal, Lorgar Aurelian, Vulcan, Corvus Corax, and Alfarius and Omegon. His sons finalized and crafted to be the warriors he needed them to be.
Angron's not a goat. I misspoke on him. Angron, listen, again, respect to Angron, listen. I get it, you know what I mean? Motherfucker had a hard life. It wasn't even his fault, you know what I'm saying? But he took a lot of L's, let's just say, you know what I'm saying? He took a lot of L's. He took a lot of L's.
He needed them to be were complete, but he may have decided to do a bit of dabbling with things he shouldn't have and paid a price. Before the Primarchs were ready to go, an intervention by the gods of chaos prevented his plan from being completed as intended. Though the sources vary, the ultimate result of the Chaos God intervention was that all of the Emperor's tools were scattered throughout the galaxy at unknown places and times. Each one of his sons ended up in a completely different world, and instead of being able to directly influence their upbringing, these children were instead forced to experience the unique nature of their respective homeworlds. Some had a great time and lived in general luxury. Others, not so much.
Oh no.
His closest advisor, Malcolm Sigilite, saying, "All right, Chief, let's try this one again." The Emperor sensed each of his sons were still very much alive, and one of the primary objectives of the Great Crusade shifted to reclaiming each of his sons so they could take command of their specific Space Marine legions and carry out his will. These original Space Marine legions that were created alongside their Primarchs go in order: the Dark Angels, Emperor's Children, Iron Warriors, White Scars, Space Wolves, Imperial Fists, Night Lords, Blood Angels, Iron Hands, World Eaters, Ultramarines, Death Guard, Thousand Sons, Luna Wolves, eventually Sons of Horus, the Word Bearers, Salamanders, Raven Guard, and the Alpha Legion. Space Marines, unlike their gene fathers, the Primarchs are not made in a vat. There is a process to recruit more members from humanity itself. Which seems a bit strange considering how massive a Space Marine is compared to a normal man, but don't forget, the Emperor is really good with genetics. Less good with anesthetic, however. These prospects are recruited across humanity from various reasons and methods, and are generally killed during that process. But
Yeah.
sometimes they aren't.
We did check out the Space Marine recruitment process, the initiate process for it, and fuck, is it ever brutal. You know, it's very rare to survive that process. Now, it's not even as brutal as some of the other initiate processes in Warhammer. As fucked as that is to say, your survival rate is better than some of the other things that could potentially happen to you or you could potentially be put into. But still, yeah, you're talking like what, one out of every, what, 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, probably 100,000 roughly that are going to be eligible by the end of it. You know what I'm saying? So the numbers are fucking, whenever you're talking about Warhammer, you have to think of a scale that's insane. You're talking about a galactic empire here. The scale is nuts.
And are generally killed during that process. But sometimes
Oh.
they aren't. And they are able to go through more and more of the actual training to assess certain traits that are important and relevant to being a Space Marine. Most of the time, the common factor is a pure, unrelenting willingness to kill the enemies of the Imperium. After going through psychological screening, the prospect, now called a neophyte, goes under the knife to become a Space Marine. And here is a quick list of all the cool new stuff they get genuinely shoved into their bodies.
Literally.
A secondary heart, an organ that makes your bones grow, an organ that makes your muscles big, an implant that makes your blood stronger,
Wow.
a little organ that turns your white blood cells into super white blood cells, a brain implant that allows you to sleep while being
Ice
awake,
Road Trucker
a
brain.
stomach that allows you to digest literally anything,
Goat stomach.
a spinal implant that allows you to absorb the genetic memories of what you eat, bigger and better lungs that can let
Michael
you breathe
Phelps
underwater,
lungs.
an implant that gives you stronger eyes, new ears that keep you from being dizzy, a brain implant that lets you go into suspended animation if you're in a bad shape, skin that acts like transition glasses, I almost got it in one take, a brand new kidney, the ability to taste the air and find enemies like a bloodhound, a special coating on your skin that allows you to be protected in space, the ability to spit acid, a gland that allows you to absorb the unique genetic makeup from the gene seed in the first place, and a straight up carapace that allows the Space Marine to interface with their power armor directly. Quite often, these are put inside of you at dubious levels of mental alertness and dubious levels of anesthetic.
Yeah, and anesthetic is not really something they really have in Warhammer for any of their operations, it seems like. So I imagine these processes are extremely brutal and fucking extremely painful even. But again, you know, these are just humans at the end of the day. So the likeliness, so even if you survive your trials, you survive the you know, the trials and tribulations to get to this point, and then you get these implants, these new organs put in you, there's a good chance your body just outright rejects it and you're dead anyway. So even if you were a great recruit potentially, there's just a chance your body says no and you're dead. Very fucked up.
You at dubious levels of mental alertness and dubious levels of anesthetic. After a more generalized indoctrination into the faith of the Imperium and a bit more training and other important manners, they can finally be
Cool scene from the Dawn of War 3 trailer.
Fledged Space Marine. A Space Marine is quite literally a walking tank that is
Pretty
armed
much.
to the teeth. Two of the more iconic weapons held by a Space Marine are their bolt gun, which fires explosive shells the size of soda cans, and a chain sword, which is
Yeah.
The Space Marine is clad in a colorful carapace.
You guys see me use the Ripper in my Fallout videos? Love that.
Heavy and
Gotta love a good chainsword.
The power armor of a Space Marine protects him from any terrors he may face, being the void of space itself to an inhospitable atmosphere. This armor, combined almost biologically with an already massive physique, makes the Space Marine an almost unstoppable fighting force. And hell, if the armor doesn't protect them enough, they can always become a walking coffin like the dreadnoughts of the chapters are. What truly adds to it all, however, is
I'm half the man I used to be, quite literally.
A Space Marine in its own right is an indoctrinated freight train on legs. How they act can be quite different from chapter to chapter.
Yes.
The gene seed of a Primarch is not just helping them become big and strong, but allows them to gain certain traits from their forefathers. Everything from how they think to even slightly adjusting their physical appearance once it's been implanted. The gene seed can be the personality of an entire Space Marine. Take the Salamanders, for example. Salamanders have a predisposition to fire. as a whole, and tend to be extremely large due to the size of their Primarch, Vulcan, and his enormous stature.
Yeah, Vulcan's a giant.
Sanguinius, Primarch of the Blood Angels, share more vampiric features and more angel-like qualities. A gene seed is not just aspects of the Primarchs, but they
also their armor looks
flaws
badass.
too. Magnus the Red and his 1,000 Sons underwent something known as the Flesh Change, a horrifying mutation that, while it made them strong psychers, would affect their bodies so terribly that they would mutate away.
Never forget the 1,000 Sons.
Factions have inspiration for their culture from our real world, like the feudal Japanese of the Eldar or Egyptian style the Necrons. Each Space Marine chapter themselves carry an inspiration. The White Scars are motorcycle riding Mongolian fighters.
Yeah.
The Space Wolves are Norse Vikings. The Dark Angels are Knights of the Round Table, and so on. This moves into their fighting style, and truthfully, there is no end to the characters and options when it comes to the Space Marines.
Yeah.
Space Marines are
so much customization. I love it.
And while many of them can be simply indoctrinated warriors who only care about conflict and can be quite boring, then you meet Dante, or Bjorn, or Argel Tall.
And that's the compelling thing about like the Space Marines in general, is they're all their own person. They're all their unique individual. Yes, they share some of the same traits, the same physicality, what have you, but each one has a unique motivation. That's why you see like, even up on like, even in the Horus Heresy, you see traitors, traitor legions. You'll see loyalists within those traitor legions. That's why some purges were committed, you know, on them. Or vice versa, you know, you'll see loyalists with traitors in them, like quite literally, you know. It's their own person with their own motivations for doing things, even if they associate with a specific chapter. That's what makes them very compelling. And these characters too, I need to check out some more of these characters, guys. I know a lot of you guys have been recommending me check out some more of the individual characters recently over the Primarchs. So in the poll, this week's reaction poll is Saturday at 6 p.m. if you guys want to be there, if you guys want to tune in, for anyone watching. Yeah, I might have to put some specific character options that you guys have been asking for. We'll see.
Then you meet Dante, or Bjorn, or Argel Tall, or Karn, or Lucius, or Erebus. And then you discover the wealth of these characters and tools of war you can have. For 1,100 years, I have fought and I have seen the darkness in our galaxy. I have seen the vileness of the alien and the heresy of the mutant. I have witnessed the sin of possession, and I have seen all the evil that the galaxy harbors. I have slain all whose presence defiles the Emperor.
Goddamn.
I have seen what you will see. I have fought what you must fight. And I have slain what you must slay. So fear not and be proud, for we are the sons of Sanguinius, the protectors of mankind. We are indeed the angels of death. Despite being the poster children for Warhammer 40k as a whole, the presence of a Space Marine is a rare sight for the countless trillions of humans across the galaxy.
Yes.
Seeing one of these monstrosities is like seeing something akin to an angel sent by the Emperor himself.
You see them a lot in representation, but in the grand scale,
to bring humanity back under the
when you're talking about hundreds of thousands of Space Marines, you got to think like how many trillions of people there are out there. Like they're such a rare sight. Like the scale of 40k is again insane, right? The amount of people it takes to even get a functional Space Marine, right? From initiate after the changes, after their physiology is changed. You got to think how many people are expended in that process alone, right? So people, there's fucking trillions of them, you know what I'm saying? If you see one of these, you're on your knees crying, you know what I'm saying? If you see a Space Marine, that's his angels, you know what I'm saying? Crazy shit to think about, just how large scale 40k is. It's one of the most compelling things about it for me.
Angels of Death are the essential fighting force to bring humanity back under the unified banner of the Imperium. Yet ultimately, the Space Marines are individuals torn from their families and conscripted to genetic modification and lifelong service for the dying Imperium. And though they are held in an almost holy light, most believe they are above and beyond the people they are designed to serve. Once designed as the protectors of humanity, they seldom view humanity as something worth saving. To the extent that it is a tiny, minute rarity, though not unheard of, for a Space Marine to put a normal citizen above them in any way. For
unless it's the
Space Marines and
Salamanders.
even their Primarchs, they are only here to do a job. They are there to kill the enemies of humanity, and I would be remiss if I didn't add at least one more of my favorite quotes to the tail end of this section. "The time for speeches is done," said Rogel Dorn. "The first great test is here. My order to you all is simple, yet heed it well, and exert yourselves to see it done. They are coming. Kill them all."
Wow.
While the Space Marines are the spearhead of the Imperium's Great Crusade and also a major player in its warfare, there is a significant amount of importance that must be taken on their transport. What sci-fi universe would be complete without its navy? When you think of the navy or ships on the open sea, you think of something that is sleek, something mobile, and something pretty big. For perspective, the longest self-propelled ship in history was the TTC-Wise Giant, an oil tanker that was about 458 meters long, or over about 1,500
Fuck.
feet. This right here is child's play in the world of 40k
Yeah,
ships.
tiny.
A ship that is considered to be an escort vessel in the Imperium is about 3 times the size of a Sea-Wise Giant, and the size of the ships only go up from there. Your most common ships are the cruisers. The light
Escorts are
cruiser tends
tiny
to
in the grand
average
scale
at
of
about
things.
2
Again, playing Battlefleet Gothic Armada gave me such good perspective. Great game, by the way. Again, if anyone's new watching this, anyone trying to get in a 40k, you know, and I'm sure all of you guys know well about 40k and are just here for the recap, but if not, Battlefleet Gothic Armada, you know what I'm saying? Great game to like truly give you the scale that you're working at in terms of the ships that are present, you know, and also just a fun game. And you get to like see all the different races like represented. Maybe not in the campaign, which is a bit sad. I wish there was an orc campaign. I really do wish there was an orc campaign. That'd be super fun. But in multiplayer, or even against AI, yeah, you get to see all those ships represented very, very nicely, and it's awesome to see.
From there. Your most common ships are the cruisers. The light cruiser tends to average at about 2 kilometers long, or just over a mile in length, where the Dictator class cruisers can be over 3 kilometers or 2 miles in length. The largest ships are your battleships, and they are tremendous. We're talking 5-mile long, half a mile high monstrosities that look like gigantic.
So what's that, like 8 kilometers?
And filled
God damn it, Bricky, you just gave us kilometers with the last size.
Are they filled with weapons, but they are also jammed.
I don't speak your funky American talk.
Tend to, on average, carry a crew between several thousand to several million, and they need every single one of those members because we don't have advanced technology for other things to pilot themselves or control themselves in a meaningful way because there's no AI.
Yeah.
All of this stuff has to be done manually. Even the reloading of those giant batteries is a form of manual labor. And
yes.
Of course, generally speaking, gliding through the stars is a very slow way to do things. And let's be honest, there can't be a science fiction setting without some form of hyperspace travel. This form of travel in 40k is less like going to Plaid in Spaceballs and more like going into Davy Jones' zipper dimension in SpongeBob.
Yeah.
Oh, now what? I suppose you're gonna show me. Oh, gee, that's very nice. Oh, what is this? Some kind of magic act?
Pretty much. That's an accurate representation, actually. Wow. That's actually very apt.
Warp
Wow.
travel is handled by a
That's pretty good, Bricky. Wow.
Abhuman. It's a mutated human, don't worry about it. And they have a gene that gives them a third eye and the ability to help steer the ship through the warp, which, as we know, is hell itself and unreality. Now, this might sound exceptionally dangerous, and that's because it is.
Yes.
Now, the ship does have protection in the form of a Geller field, though. Originally, I assumed the Geller field is what you think it is, a large force field stopping all manner of horrible things, like demons from the warp tearing apart your ship. How wrong I was, though. So space travel through the warp basically involves riding on the Sea of Souls. Hell is real and you can surf on it. So you allow the current to carry you and the navigator to direct. But how can a current of souls and unreality carry you when it doesn't obey the laws of physics, time, or, again, reality? What a Geller field is not a force field, but a comatose imperial psyker dreaming of reality. It is not a bubble. It is a force of reality being projected by mutant sleeping beauty to counteract the unreality of the warp that you can then surf on.
Wow.
This, of course, is not a foolproof method of travel.
No.
And fields can
Lots of
and
problems.
do collapse fairly regularly.
Yeah.
Being subjected to the warp itself without this Geller field is a terrifying prospect.
Oh,
In the best
God.
case scenario, your ship will be torn to shreds. But there are countless instances of ships being thrown out of the warp randomly throughout time itself. You leave for a 2-day mission and you come back 90 years in the past. Maybe you feel like you're lost in the warp for a century and it's only been 45 minutes. And that is
holy
only
shit.
if the waves of souls don't rip your ship apart or have demons arrive on it to do unspeakable things to the crew.
Now, and again, we you know, Event Horizon is not canon. We've been through that, but it is inspired by it. I can only imagine shit like that is what it would look like. Horrifying shit. But also we see that in Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2 with Spire. He gets shot out, what, thousands of years later, right? After the fall of Cadia eventually. And it's just crazy to see that, you know what I'm saying? Again, and that concept that like time is just a plaything in the warp, you know what I'm saying? Past, present, you could come out whenever. Be very fucked to see like future Astartes come out in the past, like especially like during the heresy or something like that. That'd be very fucked up.
Your ship apart.
I never thought about that.
Demons arrive on it to do unspeakable things to the crew. The Imperial Navy is an astronomically powerful force for the Imperium because the sheer volume of ships and guns on those ships create firepower that can sunder planets.
Yes.
This is all juxtaposed with the sheer backwater nature of these ships. While they are manned by crews of zealots, they are also operated with such a backwater tech, it completely confuses the reader. You see the long batteries of portside cannons that the ship has, and remember that AI is heresy in this world, and that all the mechanics are utilized by lobotomized slaves. So how do they load these? Well, they have gun gangs. Massive gangs of hundreds of people manually loading these cannons. These are genuine gun loader gangs that get into gang wars and squabbles. On the ship's bridge, you may find the captain himself hardwired directly into the ship's chair permanently to control it the best they can. Giant screens of hololith data fill the room, and sensors across the ship are just as likely to tell you information as a serf running up to you with a scroll of parchment is.
Literally.
You reach to a microphone to shout orders down a hallway as paper readouts tell you information of the enemy, and holy sigils and candlelit
Isn't that crazy?
Gleam your next move.
Isn't that insane though? Like, yeah, literally the idea of a telephone is fucking, you know, they utilize them to a degree, but also just somebody running up with parchment to deliver information is also just as reasonable, you know, or information of, you know, maybe rebellion on the lower decks, or dissidents, or, you know, maybe a weapons down, anything of the sort, right? Could be delivered just on paper, or you could just get a phone call maybe randomly. It depends who's in charge that day. Like, isn't that fucking nuts though?
And holy sigils and candlelit incense burners gleam your next move. Is not a specific faction
Imperial
of the
Navy.
Imperium.
Shit, sorry.
Of this video, it is what shepherds around the entirety of its armed forces. Every Space Marine Primarch had a flagship, and every strike cruiser and battle barge has a story to tell. But if there is a single thing that the Shield of the Navy does the best, it is to help support and supply the monumental forces of the Imperium. The hammer of the Emperor himself, the uncountable men and women of the
Right.
I don't care if these things have adapted to resist our las guns. If we can't kill them with our rifles, then we'll kill them with heavy bolters. And if we can't kill them with heavy weapons, we'll use grenades. And if grenades don't work, then we'll fight them with our swords and our knives and our bare hands. We'll drown them in our blood. That's what it means to be a soldier of the Imperial Guard. Now follow me. Charge! There is no better symbol of the might of the Imperium itself than the Astra Militarum, or as it is
the Guard,
known, the Imperial Guard.
Yeah.
The Space Marines take the glory and stand as the visual representation of the Imperium,
and
their
humanity
are dramatically thin and specialized in comparison. To reclaim 1,000,000 worlds, you need a countless number of troops willing to fight and die for your cause. The Imperial Guard represents the Imperial truth made manifest. Every year, the worlds of the Imperium pay a tithe in the form of soldiers to fight the good fight of the Emperor, and this number is impossible to pin down. Even saying billions would be a dramatic understatement. The sheer volume of soldiers serves as the fundamental backbone of the Imperium. 99.9% of battles fought by the Imperium are fought by the sundering might of the Imperial Guard.
Right.
With the knowledge that the Space Marines are essentially sentient tanks, what do the members of the Imperial Guard have? If they're the might of the Emperor himself, are they not suited up in a similar way? No.
No.
Really. No fancy suits, no biological enhancements, and basically no expectation to live. Once a regiment of guard are activated, they are sent directly into battle with almost no expectations that they will survive. This is because, despite
But if
their
you do,
training,
congratulations.
their incredibly powerful armor and extremely strong weapons that would crush any army of the modern day, they are so hopelessly outmatched to the things they will face.
Yes.
Sending a member of the guard is
That's the problem. Like, a lot of people think like, oh, like the guard aren't equipped properly. Like, they're equipped very aptly, actually. They got a lot of shit going for them. The problem is just how vastly outplayed a normal human is in the 40k universe. Like, when you got to think, you got literal fucking demons out there. What's a lasgun gonna do? What's just a normal guy gonna do with a fucking knife? You know what I'm saying? You got Eldar out there, Jukari, you got orcs out there. You know, Tau even. But, you know, what are you going to do? You know what I'm saying? Their shit is probably better than you. They're probably more advanced than you. They're probably physically meaner than you, no matter what, because we're just humans, you know? It's very compelling. They're not, like, necessarily under-equipped, just outmatched by the, like, pure superiority of most other races out there, given their own biological or technological advancements, you know? I say biological because obviously the orcs fucking breed like rabbits, and that's an understatement given that they're goddamn fungus. But, like, you know what I mean? Like shit like that. It's like you are never going to physically stand up to an orc, for example. You can shoot an orc a bunch and that'll probably kill it, and you know, that'll work really well. But, you know, they're 4 feet fucking taller than you, massed out in muscle, and running at you with goddamn swords, have no regard for their life, you know? It's hard for a human to match up to that scale necessarily.
A rock at a nuclear bomb. However, where they lack in advancement, they make up for
sheer numbers. Yeah.
And their overwhelming force can be the difference maker in any deployment they face. Quantity is a quality all its own. If they do happen to survive, they will be sent to the next battle, and so on.
Necromunda.
Members of the Astra Militarum get old or retire, and those that do are truly to be feared. There's an old saying that the average lifespan of a guardsman is about 15 hours from deployment, and considering the sheer number of guardsmen out there in any given battle,
that's fucked.
That number is probably accurate.
And it's fucked.
Several million of your pool of guardsmen die within the first few hours of combat.
Makes Verdun look like a
moon at you.
Literally.
It can really screw the numbers.
Yeah, literally. Like, again, when shit like that can just happen, you're not just talking about combat on combat. You're talking planets being fucking out of existence. You know what I'm saying? Like, completely just annihilated in the blink of an eye, or something catastrophic happening. Like, that could severely lower the average lifespan when you're talking the fact that millions can die in the span of minutes, seconds, depending, right? Very, very fucked up. One Titan fires in the general direction of a city, 10 million people die. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, crazy shit like that. So it just makes, like, the numbers insane.
Because the orcs threw a moon at you, it can really screw the numbers.
Yeah.
The soldiers of the guard are conscripted and trained on an incredible number of worlds in the Imperium.
Katie in there,
and these
purple eyes,
impact their training and their combat style directly. The most famous visually are the Cadian shock troops.
Yeah, of course.
But other notable guard factions include the gas mask clad death corps of Krieg, the Rambo level of Catachan jungle fighters, and the iron willed Mordian Iron Guard. This also helps them specialize against individual types of enemies. The Indigan Prefects are a special guard regiment that came from a planet whose planetary governor, the leader of the planet, thought it was fun to collect exotic animals, which then crossbreed and then became the giant freight train-sized monsters destroying the planet. So the Indigan prefects are specialized for big monsters. Hello, Tyranids. One particularly interesting officer in the Guard is the enforcement officer known as the Commissar, and they are one of the more visually striking members of a regiment. These are specialized Imperial officers and act as morale officers.
Morale, in quotation marks.
To the troops and providing hot meals, the Commissars are there to make sure that the members of the regiment continue to fight to the bitter end. If a soldier does not meet the standards of the Commissar, the solution is simple. There are trillions of other soldiers out there. We don't really need you. Combat fatigue? Headshot. Concerns about the conflict? Headshot. Fleeing the battlefield? You bet that's a headshot.
Oh, that might be worse than a headshot, depending if they catch you or not, or can catch you at the time.
Can be mixed, and
a headshot will do.
Certain commissars, like the esteemed Gaunt or Caiaphas Kane, tend to do a bit better with the whole people talking part, because if say you were trying to tell a beefed up Catachan jungle fighter what to do, you might take a mysterious leave of absence inside a carnivorous plant.
Right.
No matter what I say, I don't think I can truly convey the sheer might of the Imperial Guard, so I'm gonna get a visual aid. Let's take a look at this image right here, right? This is the cover of the 9th edition Codex for the Astra Militarum, the official cover art. Your eyes may be drawn to the dark and brutal looks of some of the main members on the front and the gigantic orc they are attacking.
Yeah.
Zoom out a little bit.
Look at the scale.
There is no floor.
Yeah, it's just people.
Only people. And behind those people are tanks. And behind those tanks are flying artillery shells. There are 2 enormous transport ships in the sky, and their ramps are down, and on their ramps are more people. The Imperium is described as having 1,000,000 worlds. 1,000,000 worlds.
That's cool, actually. I didn't actually realize the transport ship in the background, but yeah, you can see that transport ship just unloading people, and it's just a human wave just pouring out. Like straight up Starship Trooper vibes, almost like if you watch the movie when they get off those drop pods, just that swarm human mass. Think that, but on a much larger scale. Like a fucking doesn't even compare in scale, but much similar. You know, very cool.
To the Imperial Guard for the tithe on a given battlefield in a given fight. Foot soldiers number in the millions, tanks in the tens of thousands, and you have enough artillery to turn the night sky day. You have mortars and APCs and aircraft and horse cavalry and tanks the size of apartment buildings. You have drop troops and spec ops and rattling snipers and gigantic ogrids that can't count to 4, but they can turn you into 4 pieces, and it just doesn't end. Humanity is a horde army, but instead of a horde of bugs or rampaging orcs, it's a living wall of guns. At the end of the day, though he's been ferried through hell on a ship that's 10,000 years old to some godforsaken war-torn rock, though he deployed from high orbit with nothing but a grav chute, though he is one of 10 million men and women snatched from his homeworld to fight a war he barely understands, though he has been given a weapon that fires small suns and may annihilate him as he fires because the knowledge of how it functions has been lost, though his company is supported by tractor tanks that run on anything you can burn, though he wages war against the devouring hive mind, ravenous demons, and hyper advanced aliens with strange technologies and sorceries he never dreamed existed. No one will remember his sacrifice. There will be no records of his deeds, no glorious parades in his honor, and no remembrance of his name. Unless you make it. Unless you really make it. Grave on a forgotten world, untold light years.
But you need to really make it as a guardsman to be remembered.
Is a man just like you.
Yeah.
He has no millennia-old genetic engineering, no prophetic leader, no miracles of faith. He has his lasgun, his orders, and those beside him. He is the Imperial Guard, and he will hold the line.
Wow.
In the end, the
Great quote.
despite fighting for the honor of the Imperium, are their own form of a massive horde army where individuality does not matter.
No.
Merely numbers to the Imperium, and the vast majority of the conflicts they are sent to are attrition-based battles that gain virtually no ground while countless millions die. Yet this makes them the most human. For the Imperial Guard contains normal people, people who are happy and sad, people who laugh and love, and in there are stories, because there is strength in facing the horrors of the universe head on with nothing but a rifle in your hands and a prayer on your lips. Armed
Literally.
with an innumerable amount of Imperial soldiers and Space Marines, the Navy begins its great crusade into the stars to rescue the stranded Primarchs and reunite them to their legions. But the biggest question needed to be asked was, what would they find? The age of strife lasted for thousands of years.
A mix of
If
things is what they would
civilization was
find.
still alive out there in the galaxy, what would they be like? The technological advancements of humanity prior to and during the Dark Age technology was unfathomable. It allowed them to spread through the galaxy with ease and allowed them to settle once inhospitable planets.
They have
These
no
races
idea
of
how to do it
humanity
anymore,
provided with the
necessarily.
vast knowledge of human creations and were
Only
given
what they
gigantic
found.
machines to make arduous labor and ease. The spreading of these massive colony ships was known as the Long March, and these ships would be retrofitted into settlements upon arrival to their new homes. Accompanying them were the gigantic pieces of farm equipment that served multiple
knights.
purposes and the specialized pilots that could maintain them. They were not only able to tend the fields and do labor, but when interstellar communication was cut off, they also did a great job of protecting the colonists against both threats demonic and alien. Because of the significance
And
of these
internal,
machines,
I'm sure.
those that could pilot them
They could
were
probably put down a
powerful
revolt or
enough to
two if they
conserve
wanted to.
and the upkeep and preservation of the machines and the lineage of those who could pilot them was imperative. These machines, over the thousands of years, would eventually be
Night
known
houses.
as the
Wow. They get their own little sub faction here. Awesome.
strong of arm.
I didn't think they'd get their own section, but this is
and
awesome to
follow
see.
Deeds of glory. He must keep honor with all, banish cowardice from his doings, and bring his house no shame. He must serve the emperor and defend the Imperium. Thus should a knight rule himself. The
Wow.
age of strife caused these colonized worlds to be cut off from the Imperium, and the reversion of these worlds resulted in the reverence for this farm equipment turned feudal, and the leadership that controlled the devices became viewed as a noble hierarchy. During the age of strife, exploratory fleets from Mars found plenty of these worlds, and it seemed the majority of them reverted to a similar state. Like King Arthur seeing Merlin himself, these feudal worlds welcomed the tech priests of Mars with open arms. The mutual relationship between the Admech and the nobility was beneficial. The Admech were able to secure more worlds for mining resources and potentially long-lost STC information, and the noble houses were provided with technological know-how and modifications from the Admech themselves. The suits became more and more specialized, and their history as mere pieces of equipment were lost to time. What was once a tractor became a killdozer.
Literally.
The Imperial Knights were born. Unlike other military aspects in the
Now, also, I think to add there too, right? There's Admech, and then there's Admech Knights, and then there's actually Imperium Knights, right? There's technically two different sub factions within the Knight houses, if I recall, right? I don't know if he'll touch on that here. He probably will, but maybe not. But they're not just under the Mechanicus rule. They do get Imperium rule too. And there's upsides and downsides to kind of choosing a proclivity to one over the other, in a sense, from what I understand. But let's keep watching here.
And the Imperial Knights were born. Unlike other military aspects in the Imperium, the nobility of the Knight houses remains just that, a nobility-focused feudal hierarchy that swears fealty to either the Mechanicum or to Terra. Like the Knights in our history, once they swear fealty, they can be called to aid their respective allegiance in the heat of battle. The
Nice.
ones that swear fealty to Terra are led by the High Monarch, while the ones with the Mechanicum are led by the Princeps. The ones with
Right.
Terra might be sent directly to the front line of war, while the ones with the Mechanicum tend to be sent to protect the Forge world. And the heraldry of these houses is what you'd expect from a generic history of knights. Houses pledging allegiances here and there, your run-of-the-mill War of the Roses aesthetic. Instead of ponies, you have gigantic death machines.
Yeah.
These knights can't seem to be piloted by any old person, however. A member of the nobility of any given knight house must go through the ritual of becoming. This
It's very
ritual involves them
involved.
sitting on the device used to control the knight, known as the Throne Mechanicum, for a full night. What's wrong with that? I mean, sitting in a chair for a full evening sounds pretty great right about now. So, a pilot
Except you're
cannot
plugged into
drive
it.
A knight. They can, but it moves about as effective as Ripley from Aliens 2, you know, lifter thing. It is, in a sense, a beast that must be controlled. and a pilot must merge with it. The mind of the noble is connected to the machine and must fight with the mental signatures and personalities of the prior pilots as well.
Yeah, the machine spirit
in battle is felt by the pilot themselves, be it the general movement in the battlefield or damage sustained by the machine itself. If a knight's leg is blown off in battle, the pilot could experience a broken bone in the same spot. The merging to the machine forever changes the mentality of the noble that experiences it. This connection reinforces a strong degree of nobility.
What is this, Abstergo? Oh my god.
And a desire to fight for the glory of their house until the bitter end, as their ancestors' minds are linked directly to the knight. The size of these knights can vary, but generally speaking, they stand in the ballpark of 30 to 50 feet tall and are protected by a thick adamantium armor. Beyond that, they have their own unique ion shield generators that give them added protection. And when it comes to their looks, the most common pattern across the Imperium is the Questoris pattern. And it's honestly the one you're probably thinking about right now. But there are also smaller versions like armigers and bigger ones known as the Dominus. As for loadout, these guys are essentially a violent Mr. Potato Head.
Yeah.
Gatling cannons, heavy flamers, thermal
some of the coolest, and I have to say too, knights are some of my most favorite units in 40k, just from looking at them visually, and the miniatures for them are fucking fantastic. They're so fucking cool, I have to say. So it's like, you know, and they're armed up to the teeth, you know, and so customizable, and just what weaponry they can have attached, their heraldries, you know, the color scheme of that knight, so many different features. And there's also chaos knights too, which is fucking sweet, you know. So I think they're awesome. They're probably one of my most favorite units, to be honest.
Battle cannons, Gatling cannons, heavy flamers, thermal cannons, up close and personal. How about a gigantic chainsword or a straight up gauntlet?
Literally.
And for that empty spot up top, screw it. More auto cannons. Maybe add some missiles. Whatever you can do to make it as over the top as possible, you gotta do it. A squire serves a knight serves a lord serves a baron, and a baron serves a monarch. So who does the monarch serve? He serves every subject, from the rudest serf to the members of the court. Chivalric fealty, when ideally practiced, is not a pyramid, but a circle. Ironically, on the surface, night worlds themselves are one of the least grim dark settings in the galaxy.
Yes.
Reverting to an ancient time with knights and peasants is almost an escapism from the techno of the modern Imperium. But this, of course, doesn't make it great for everyone.
No.
It sounds fun on paper to play a game of knights, but it's not so fun when you're the peasant.
It's also a feudal society, and everything that comes along with that.
The throne mechanicum, and their reality is
you might be safe, but you're still a medieval serf, basically.
Ancestors controlling their actions and their lives for as long as they live. It's a strange dichotomy. When it comes to Warhammer, most to all jobs tend to be terrible. However, if there was one that could be considered enjoyable, it would be the pilot of a knight, or a princeps of their larger cousins. While it does contain an egregious amount of hardship to be a knight pilot, you do enjoy a wealth of privilege. A knight pilot is often an asshole who can back it up. The rich noble that, despite his braggadocious behavior, is still very much him, and he will continue to be him. But knights are not the only thing that the Imperium found lost in the stars during their Great Crusade. Due to the circumstances of the Age of Strife, humans were changing and adapting to their new homes they were now isolated on. Some of these humans evolved over thousands of years to adapt to these areas, and they were known as abhumans. Many abhumans found their way into the Imperial Guard or other lesser positions in the Imperium if they were not wiped out immediately for being too different from their human counterparts. But their abilities and appearance vary from planet to planet, and one particular group of abhumans have made quite a name for themselves in the center of the galaxy.
No? Votan. Leagues of Votan.
The origins of what would be known as the kin start at some point during the Dark Age technology.
I don't know a lot about Votan.
Left a planet that is very much Terra and went to the galactic core to mine it of its resources.
Damn.
They brought along with them everything that they would need for a long-term stay, most important of which were the incredible AI-based supercomputers. Be it guidance, technical or philosophical, schematics, or the ability to upload the memories of a deceased explorer to gather information from them, these computers became an essential part of their everyday life, especially considering that the galactic core is one of the most inhospitable places in the galaxy. It is an exceptionally star-dense location, full of abnormalities, black holes, and sentient hostile nebula. Whatever that last part means.
Yeah, exactly. What the fuck does that that mean?
To make a living. And
Jesus.
this only got worse thanks to the warp storms during the Age of Strife. In order to adapt to this area, these travelers perfected a genetic makeup that made their future clones to be more adept to the area. These future clones would be shorter and more robust than their ancestors, and the need to
aren't these like the dwarves?
Because why risk messing up a good employee when you can just make a new one? These would be known as the squats, and they would all die, except for when they didn't. And now they are known by a different name. Most void-faring races have at least one cautionary tale of foolish explorers vanishing amidst its blazing stellar nurseries and strange anomalies. And for the leagues of Votann, the galactic core has been home now for millennia. These squat humanoids would begin to establish themselves in the core, and their goals would be the same as their ancestors. Rock and stone! But actually kinda, yeah. Whenever one of them would die,
pretty much,
that sucker would need to be uploaded to the machines like their forefathers did. But the original purpose of these machines was lost to time. What was once a technical resource for them turned into a ritual known as joining the ancestors. And the fact that they were clones at this point meant that the same copy of the same individual would be uploaded countlessly. The sheer overuse of these computers and the repeated uploading of redundant data has turned these once powerful supercomputers into your parents' computer after you installed LimeWire, and whose 50 Google Chrome tabs definitely contain information they will return to one day. So much corruption that these computers began to develop the makings of a personality of their own. These will be known as the Votann, and the kin, this dwarf-like abhuman of humanity, would revere them. The Votann still operate to this day, but the volume of corruption have made anything outside of their very basic functions highly unpredictable. They may not answer a question for centuries at a time, and if they do provide an answer or data, it has become so corrupted and so incongruent that it takes a literal kin wizard to comprehend it. The kin, much like the dwarves of fantasy, exists nowadays as a mercantile species that constantly work to mine and manufacture. However, their capitalistic desires are dangerous. The biggest crimes a kin can face are being lazy, unproductive, and breaking a contract. Conflicts have broken out over hundreds of years due to the breaking of a deal. So if you signed a contract with a kin, you best stick to it, because
they take that shit very seriously.
Other species in
it's almost like the Book of Oaths, I think, in fantasy,
who have met
old world.
Various members of the kin multiple times, but constantly considered them to be all a different species. Famously, the Imperium noted that the kin they referred to as the Squats were their own species and were wiped out by the Tyranids. Little did they know, they were still around. The kin are acutely aware of two things. The first is that the humans of the Imperium are deeply terrified of technology, so the sheer existence of the Votann is a secret as well as the truth. This extends also to the Iron Kin, sentient robots that are treated in the same esteem of flesh and blood kin, because kin is kin. The second thing they are aware of is where they're from.
So they have AI, technically.
They are from Terra, and they know that if this secret was to be known by the Imperium, that the Imperium might want to take ownership of them and everything they've built. So the more alien they are, the better. Now, this sounds fine and good, right? What could possibly be wrong with these guys besides the hyper late stage space capitalism?
Right.
We have to go back to their creation. The kin are an entirely clone-based.
Again, I don't know much about Votann at all.
That are exceptionally difficult.
They're rather new in terms of Warhammer content, aren't they?
Are becoming more and more unpredictable and derelict. If anything were to happen to these machines, it would be a twofold ending of the kin. New kin cannot be reproduced, reducing their numbers, and the existing kin would have no further purpose because the end that awaits them would be non-existent. The horror of the kin civilization is that the entire purpose of their lives is to do the best they can at their duty and upload all they know to the Votann, their ancestor cores, join their ancestors. But doing so is actually the thing that is killing these supercomputers in the first place. The ancestors were dead, but through the first truths, their legacy continued. And though their eyes had shut long ago, indeed the ancestors were watching, not with a gaze from eons gone, but with the eyes of every living kin. Each generation was the embodiment of the ancestors cast anew by the Votann. The galaxy changed. Stars died, planets were destroyed, and civilizations fell. But as long as the Votann endured,
The ancestors still lived.
Damn.
I do want to end this last bit with an enjoyable quote from one Kim. As you may have assumed, the Leagues of Votann are space dwarves with
Yeah,
a corporate
pretty much.
sci-fi motif.
Pretty
But
much.
they are still very much dwarves. They're squat, they're strong as hell, and they hold serious grudges. This time it's just more about your contracts than anything else. And so because of this, they might treat most things about how you would expect a capitalistic dwarf would treat things. You misunderstand, human. I am not here to debate. I am not here to compromise. What you see as yours, I am taking for my kindred. You want to bargain? Torek, unholster our means of negotiation. As the Great Crusade continued, humanity would find their missing Primarchs, reestablish the locations of all of their various worlds, and finally reclaim what the Emperor was always hoping for. But eventually, all the Emperor sought to build would be his undoing. His original attempt to have all of the Primarchs lead his great armies and usher humanity into the better ages would end up crumbling down. And we learn about how the Imperium backslides and the horror of the modern day of 40k in part 2.
Ooh.
I will see you very soon. Thank you so much for watching.
Wow. Wow, guys. That was, brief ending there. That was every single Warhammer 40k faction re-explained part 1 by Bricky, guys. I thought that was fantastic. He did a lot better job. And this isn't to say he did a bad job in his first one. That's not what I'm saying. Do not fucking take it that way, please. But he did a lot better job in this one than the first one. I thought this was amazing. I was not bored at all watching this. I thought this was a fantastic video. I didn't get into any of the in-depth lore, but it's not meant to. It's meant to be that sort of drawbridge video as he describes it, right? To get people that maybe don't know what don't know what 40k is, don't really know much about the setting, to get those people interested, to get the pinky in there and to see what's what, to see if you actually enjoy it, you know. And I think as far as a video like that goes, Bricky again nailed it right on the head with that. I thought this was a fantastic video. And again, the video title, not really clickbait. It's a throwback to my older videos, and I thought that'd be funny. So yes, guys, if you enjoyed the video, of course, leave a like, subscribe for more content from me, and of course, leave your recommendations down in the comments below. Big shout out to all of our members, all of the Hastati and our Principe Dagenhart. I appreciate you, sir. You guys inspire me to make more content for you guys every single day, of course. And yeah, guys, if you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe for more content, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace, guys.